The Subcommittee on on Consumer Protection and Commerce will now come to order. We begin with member opening statements, and the chair will now recognize herself for 5 minutes. So I want to say good morning to all of you on this beautiful day, and thank you for joining us for this hearing examining how counterfeit products and fake reviews sold and found on the internet are making Americans less safe at home, at work, and on the road. When we began planning this hearing, I had two clear goals in mind. One, to strengthen the existing Consumer Product Safety Commission's relationship with the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to keep counterfeit and unsafe products from entering our country. Number two, to examine what tools the Federal Trade Commission needs to combat the proliferation of fake reviews online, since recent cases, like its settlement with cosmetic company Sunday Riley, clearly demonstrates that it's not currently up to the task of taking on the worst, some of the worst problems. Shortly after we began planning for today, I was pleased to learn that the administration's plan to combat counterfeits entering the marketplace under the leadership of Dr. Peter Navarro. I expect them to be able to partner with us in an effort to strengthen CPSC's relationship with customers. However, I have to say the vast majority of the commerce shipped to the U.S. consumers skirts normal custom procedures and often all inspections because they enter the U.S. under de minimis waivers. Worse, Monday's announcement of Dr. Nancy Beck, her nomination leaves me less hopeful about the prospect for collaboration, given her anti-consumer record at the Environmental Protection Agency and as an executive at the American Chemical Council. Unfortunately, these problems neither began nor end at ports of entry. Fake reviews are becoming more and more widespread, and up to this point, the Federal Trade Commission has proven that it needs more tools to combat this growing concern by consumers. Organized retail crime selling counterfeits and stolen products poses a threat to consumers who are unwittingly purchasing these items online on online marketplaces. The emergence of these unregulated platforms has given criminal enterprises additional meaning to sell stolen and counterfeit goods to unsuspecting consumers. Online marketplaces need to place safety and accountability to consumers before profits. Unfortunately, we are seeing more and more companies characterizing online commerce as content, seeking to use the content liability shield granted through Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a law badly in need of reform. Making matters worse, the administration is seeking to further enshrine the law 230 by exporting it to in trade agreements all over the world. Last week I wrote a letter to Ambassador Lighthizer to associate myself with the chair and ranking member of this full committee, requesting that to leave this policy out of future trade agreements, and I'll continue to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about the current state of play and how we can improve the situation, including by arming the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the Federal Trade Commission with the tools necessary to help root out this problem. So now the chair will recognize our ranking member of the subcommittee, and you will have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
I thank the chair. Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Consumer Protection and Commerce Subcommittee hearing on counterfeit products. I first want to recognize how President Trump and his administration are leading to combat counterfeit and pirated goods online. The president has made this a priority, which is clear in phase 1 of the U.S.-China trade deal. For instance, China agreed to provide enforcement procedures to facilitate effective and quick takedowns, consider revoking e-commerce operating licenses for repeated failures, take action to stop the manufacturing of pirated and counterfeit products, take enforcement action against counterfeit medicines and other products that have made a significant impact on public health or safety, and increase the number of trained professionals to inspect, detain, and destroy any counterfeit goods found at the Chinese border. In addition, on January 24th, the Department of Homeland Security released its first report, required by President Trump's April 2019 Memorandum on Combating Trafficking in Counterfeit and Pirated Goods. This was a call to action to fight against cheaters and bad actors gaming the e-commerce system. The report recommends where the government should take action and best practices for e-commerce platforms and other third-party marketplaces. Among the best practices, the administration is calling on companies to enhance the vetting of third-party sellers, limit high-risk products, clear transactions through banks that comply with U.S. law, and provide rapid notice and takedown procedures. Following the report, President Trump signed an executive order to ensure safe and lawful e-commerce products, and guard against intellectual property abuse. I commend the administration for their leadership. As I've said before, to win the future and beat China, America must be the global leader in the 21st century economy. Just like we must lead to promote artificial intelligence and deploy autonomous vehicles, America must also lead to stop counterfeit goods and protect our intellectual property. If we don't step up, China will dictate the terms and the rules for the future. The Chinese Communist Party will win with the playbook they've always used, by undermining human rights, stealing from our innovators, and cheating and harming Americans. America innovates and creates, while China cheats and steals. According to a report by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, China is, quote, the single largest producing market of counterfeit and pirated products. Administration officials estimate that more than 100,000 packages from China arrive in America a day that can harm and defraud people. More than 85% of all contraband seized at our borders come from China and Hong Kong. While the administration is taking decisive action, the government and regulations cannot solve this issue alone. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. American innovators must be equipped to win the future and beat China in artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, and other emerging technologies. Companies today are leveraging AI to analyze data points, to discover counterfeit listings and repeat offenders. IoT provides identification and traceability functions that can be used to address and track counterfeit sales. Blockchain may provide a unique solution to this complex problem. For example, a tamper-proof chain of custody that uses smart tags can ensure only authentic products are included in the blockchain and sold. As the DHS report suggests, we should leverage public-private partnerships to develop a national awareness campaign. We should educate people about the risk of counterfeits, as well as the various ways they can spot and report counterfeits online. E-tails, small businesses conduct test buys, documenting counterfeits, and filing complaints, among other services. It's proactive, pro-innovative, and pro-consumer. And actions like this should be encouraged, especially on e-commerce sites that are convenient for people and create more opportunity for small businesses to succeed. I thank the leaders at like e-tails for taking action for the health and safety of customers. And I encourage this committee to lead by harnessing, not holding back, the innovation and the agility of the private sector to address this pervasive problem of counterfeit products. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back, and now the chair recognizes Mr. Pallone, chairman of the full committee, for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for holding this very important hearing. And I do also want to, well, I don't agree with Mrs. Rogers in terms of what she said about the Trump administration leading on this issue. I don't think they are. But I do want to thank you for being for pointing out that there's a lot more that the private sector could do, and also for coming down very hard on China, because I think you're absolutely right that there's so much of this that's coming from China, and that they're very much to blame for a lot of the counterfeiting and outright fraud that we're seeing. But I want to say that thanks to the growth in e-commerce, we can purchase products from our computers, phones, tablets, or our smart speakers at any hour of the day, with the expectation that the products will be delivered at our doorstep within days or even hours. Third-party sellers on online marketplaces such as Amazon, eBay, and others are responsible for much of the convenience, providing a seemingly endless selection of products for consumers. On Amazon, where nearly half of online U.S. shoppers start their product searches, sales by third-party sellers now make up 60% of total sales. But the problem is that this convenience has come at a price, and that is a proliferation of dangerous counterfeit goods that endanger consumers and property, and an army of counterfeit merchants from overseas, particularly China, that undermine American small businesses with unscrupulous tactics. And the practices and policies of the online platforms have made it increasingly difficult for even the savviest consumers to avoid fake and unsafe products. For years, brick and mortar stores have had policies in place to ensure the integrity of their supply chain. The stores also take responsibility for defective or unsafe products, and these traditional practices simply do not exist on the online marketplace. In fact, many online marketplaces seem to be taking the opposite approach, abdicating any responsibility because they are thriving off the sale of fake goods. A recent survey found that 26% of American consumers have been conned into purchasing at least one counterfeit product in the past year. Too many consumers don't realize they purchase counterfeits until it's too late, and this can result in tragic consequences. Hoverboards with counterfeit batteries have caught on fire while charging, burning down someone's house. Fake beauty products have reportedly caused people's eyelashes to fall out in clumps, and counterfeit products can result in chronic health effects that do not present until years later, like water filter cartridges that not only don't remove contaminants, but actually add new carcinogens to water. Investigations by various media outlets have uncovered a huge number of knockoff children products that pose serious safety risks. There have been troubling reports of car seats that don't meet the National Highway Traffic Administration's crash test standards. Bicycle helmets, I see Mr. Love brought some, but I don't mean that yours are bad, but bicycle helmets that don't meet the Consumer Product Safety Commission's performance standards, and recalled products and knockoffs of recalled products that federal regulators know can or already have caused serious death or injury. And these knockoff products proliferate on online marketplaces. And consumers and authentic brands cannot fight the combination of lax policies of online platforms and deceptive practices of unscrupulous sellers trying to edge out legitimate businesses. Fake and incentivized reviews drown out authentic reviews or are used to take down legitimate rivals. On many marketplaces, misleading user interfaces obscure the identity of the actual seller for each purchase. And a person may think they're buying from Amazon when they're instead buying from a foreign third party who merely ships through Amazon. And a platform's decision to commingle inventory from different sellers makes it virtually impossible for anyone to reliably track whether they received a counterfeit or authentic product. Counterfeiters also have become much more sophisticated, producing products that appear authentic and setting prices more on par with authentic goods to better trick consumers. And savvy consumers who turn to the online store of a trusted brick-and-mortar business in search of authentic goods are increasingly finding a marketplace of third-party sellers instead of a place to directly purchase their trusted brands. Many large traditional retailers, Walmart, Target, Macy's, Crate and Barrel, have launched third-party marketplaces to keep pace with Amazon and bolster lagging sales. So it's these hybrid marketplaces in which a site acts as both a seller and a platform for third-party sellers that I think are most confusing. While some of these platforms screen and curate their sellers, others do less vetting and can give those sellers an order of credibility, often undeserved. So this week is National Consumer Protection Week. I think we can help bring attention to issues that are causing consumer problems. This week is a perfect time to get answers from our panel on the scope of the problem and solutions we can implement to protect consumers. And again, I think this is a very important hearing. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you for pointing out that it's National Consumer Protection Week. Okay. So this hearing is totally appropriate. The gentleman yields back, and now the chair recognizes Mr. Walden, the ranking member of the full committee, for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and welcome to our panelists. We appreciate your being here on this hearing on counterfeits and unsafe products. When I chaired the committee, we held a series of hearings on platform responsibility. Today's hearing builds on, I think, that really important work we did in this committee last Congress. Chair Schakowsky, thanks for holding this hearing where we can explore what steps online platforms and marketplaces with rights holders are taking to address counterfeit goods online. Online marketplaces are attractive digital storefronts that allow consumers to quickly locate products on their own time. This low search cost provides consumers high visibility and access to so many different options and price points and allows aspiring small business owners to reach more potential customers. But with an increased use and attractiveness of these entities also comes an increase of bad actors, as you all know. They seek to game the system and sell counterfeit products and illicit products. We, of course, have seen these supply channels come via China, touch every part of this committee's jurisdiction. Given that, I'm pleased that the Trump administration has taken this issue very seriously, as we can all agree that counterfeit products threaten our economy, public safety, and consumer trust. After all, we have an obligation to ensure the e-commerce policies this committee helped put in place continue to have positive impacts for American consumers. We can now order groceries and household supplies online and expect them to be at our door within hours. This convenience is truly remarkable, especially for individuals who do not have access to or the capability to visit brick-and-mortar storefronts. But again, the success and benefits of these marketplaces has given rise to those peddling counterfeit and illicit products for a quick buck. Counterfeiters do not care about the existing laws, nor do they care about the small businesses and people that they actually hurt. I say that recognizing the complexity involved here for all of you on the panel. If you find and remove an account or product today, a bad actor can create a new account and begin selling the same product tomorrow under a different name or a different site. Just like the Hydra, if you cut off one head, others generate in its place. Despite these challenges, the Trump administration does deserve credit for countering the widespread distribution of counterfeits. Just last month, the Department of Homeland Security issued its Combating Trafficking in Counterfeit and Pirated Goods report. After that report was released, President Trump issued an executive order making clear this administration is focused on cracking down on the sale of counterfeit goods online. Now let's go to the report. In fiscal 2018, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, seized over 28,000 products. That's what the report found. It also showed the market for counterfeit pharmaceutical drugs had expanded to include everything from cancer medications to opioids. Fake prescription opioids are often laced with fentanyl. That's a deadly compound that's lethal dose is the size of a few grains of salt. And much of the fentanyl entering our country originates in China. Republicans and Democrats on this committee have worked together in the past to address the public health crisis of fake medications and the influx of fentanyl entering our country, but we all know we have a lot more work to do in this front. The fight against counterfeits and illicit products must also include consumer education and awareness. Counterfeits can be difficult to spot online, especially when stolen graphics and other forms of deception are used, but sometimes we just need to know when a deal is truly good to be true. It probably is. You can't get the new Apple AirPods Pro in whatever color you like for a few bucks. All sectors must work with appropriate government agencies to increase awareness among consumers to help them better identify and report potential conflicts. and counterfeits. I'm eager to hear what e-commerce platforms and marketplaces are doing to address this problem and how they're incorporating feedback from the Department of Homeland Security report to increase safety and educate consumers on their platforms. I also look forward to hearing what steps rights owners are taking to protect their brands and how they're collaborating with platforms and marketplaces to do so. I believe collaboration can and must occur between online platforms and marketplaces, law enforcement, and rights owners. We have to all get together and protect our consumers. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and Madam Chair, I want to thank you for holding this hearing. I know your cause is consumer protection, and so we'll look forward to moving forward, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. And now the chair would like to remind members that pursuant to committee rules, all members' written opening statements shall be made part of the record. And now I will introduce the witnesses that we have today. I welcome all of you. Dr. David Friedman. He's Vice President of Advocacy and at Consumer Reports. Mr. Dharman Mehta, Vice President of World Customer Trust and Partner Support at Amazon. Oh, I skipped. Who did I skip? Didn't I say Mr.?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Next is my friend, Lori Wallach, who is Director of Global Trade Watch at Public Citizen. And then Ms. Amber Levitt, Associate General Counsel and Head of IP at eBay. Mr. Jeff Myers, Senior Director for Intellectual Property at Apple. And finally, Mr. Andrew Love, Head of Brand Security, Investigations and Global Enforcement at Specialized Bicycle. Welcome all of you, and we want to thank the witnesses for joining us today. We look forward to your testimony, and at this time, the chair will recognize each witness for 5 minutes to provide your opening statement. Before we begin, I want to explain the lighting system. I think most of you know, but if not, I want to tell you that in front of you is a series of lights. The light will initially be green at the start of your opening statement. The light will turn yellow when you have 1 minute remaining, and please begin to wrap up your testimony at that point. The light will turn red when your time expires, and we'd really like you to keep to that 5 minutes. So, Mr. Friedman, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Try that again. How's
There you
that?
go.
Technology. Thank you, Chairwoman Schakowsky, Ranking Member Rogers, and members of the subcommittee for inviting CR to testify today. We're here today because American families face new threats in the marketplace. A patchwork of poorly enforced regulations offers few safeguards for Americans grappling with seismic shifts in the economic and media landscapes. With little governing of the accuracy of online claims, consumers face a true uphill battle engaging the value, the quality, and the authenticity of goods and products available to them. Now, what's so stunning about this is it is the exact same challenge Consumer Reports faced when we were founded in 1936. 84 years later, we're asking the same fundamental question. How do we ensure that the marketplace works for consumers? Of course, this time, it's the digital marketplace. Fueled by the incredible power and reach of the internet, today's $3.4 trillion global e-commerce system provides what appear to be hundreds of millions of reasonable choices. But all too often, it leaves consumers on their own to figure out which products are defective and dangerous, which ones are counterfeit, and whether the reviews they rely on are fake or the websites they're using are manipulating their buying decisions. The fact is, core parts of the e-commerce system are broken. There's no other way to explain the fact that just this morning, I was able to find Fisher-Price Rock and Play sleepers for sale on both Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and from an online retailer, You Are My Everything, despite the fact that the product was recalled more than 10 months ago after being tied to dozens of infant deaths. Or why you could buy other hazardous incline sleepers on Amazon, Buy Buy Baby, eBay, and Walmart's websites until those companies stepped up and pulled the products after the CPSC and Consumer Reports reached out. There's also no other way to explain the fact that until CR shed light on the problem, you could buy a potentially counterfeit bike helmet on websites operated by Amazon, Sears, Alibaba, and Light in the Box, despite the fact that they did not have mandated safety certifications. Or that in one afternoon, a Consumer Reports reporter spotted over a dozen different products on Amazon with inflated ratings fueled by thousands of fake reviews, including an Amazon's Choice headphone adapter with reviews for a totally different product, an eyelash growth serum of all things. Today, a core problem in the e-commerce is clear. There's a fundamental lack of online platform accountability. Accountability that can be created in 3 steps. First, online marketplaces should absolutely be held responsible when they are or should be reasonably aware of hazardous products or illegal behavior, including fake reviews and other manipulative practices. They should also be required by law to reasonably search for and deter abuses like these. Second, after being undermined for decades, the authorities of critical consumer protection agencies must be strengthened in order to address the limitations or gaps hindering their ability to police online marketplaces. This is especially true for the FTC. Finally, the CPSC, FTC, and NHTSA have about half as many people, working for them today compared to 1980, while the economy has tripled in size and dramatically changed. Congress should at least double their budgets and significantly increase their staff so consumers don't have to carry such a large burden to keep themselves and their families safe in both the digital and physical marketplaces. Members of the committee, you are here to help your constituents, in other words, consumers, and too often the digital marketplace is failing them. It's time to fix the system by shifting greater responsibility to online platforms and ensuring consumer protection agencies can create and enforce accountability in the system. Accountability that will spur companies to put their innovative power to use to help their customers. Consumer Reports will continue to expose dangerous products, counterfeits, fake reviews, and other schemes because consumers deserve a fair, safe, and transparent digital marketplace, one that they can trust and that fundamentally delivers on its immense promise. We look forward to working with this subcommittee and any company interested in realizing a digital marketplace that puts consumers first. Thank you.
Yeah, the gentleman yields back, and Mr. Mehta, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Schakowsky, Ranking Member McMorris Rogers, and members of the subcommittee for inviting me to participate in today's hearing. I'd also like to thank the full committee, including Chairman Pallone and Ranking Member Walden. My name is Dharmesh Mehta, and I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Customer Trust and Partner Support at Amazon. I have the privilege of leading the teams that are dedicated to ensuring that we prevent fraud, counterfeits, fake reviews, and other forms of abuse from harming our customers, brands, and selling partners, as well as the teams dedicated to helping support our selling partners in succeeding in our stores. I also work very closely with the Amazon teams dedicated to ensuring that we prevent unsafe or otherwise non-compliant products from being sold in our stores. Amazon's goal is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, and we are regularly cited as one of the leading companies in this regard. Stores like ours provide tremendous selection, convenience, and value to consumers. But unfortunately, this also presents an attractive target for criminals and bad actors that attempt to attack our stores. To maintain Amazon's high level of trust with customers, we make record investments in proactive technology-driven systems and expert human investigators. We launch innovative tools and capabilities that continue to improve, and we partner with government agencies, policymakers, and law enforcement to hold bad actors accountable. We know that if customers don't trust us, they can and will shop elsewhere. And a key part of earning customers' trust is ensuring that only authentic and safe products are sold in our stores. We strictly prohibit the sale of counterfeit products, and we require all products to comply with applicable laws, regulations, and Amazon policies. But even more importantly, Amazon invests tremendous resources in preventing counterfeits, unsafe products, and other types of abuse. In 2019 alone, we invested over $500 million and had more than 8,000 employees who focused on preventing fraud and abuse. As a part of these investments, Amazon invests heavily in proactive efforts designed to stop bad actors before they're able to create new selling accounts and to stop bad listings, including counterfeits and unsafe products, from ever being seen in our stores. Third parties trying to create a new selling account go through a set of enhanced vetting, including a number of identity and payment-related verifications, and we also use proprietary machine learning technology to stop bad actors before they can list a single product for sale. In 2019, our proactive efforts blocked over 2.5 million bad actor account creation attempts before they were able to publish a single product for sale. We also continue to monitor all seller accounts over time, including through technology that scans each of the more than 5 billion listing updates that are submitted daily to our catalog. When we find something concerning, we may block that listing, require additional verification to sell that product, and/or conduct further investigation. We have similar ongoing processes in place to monitor and stop potentially fake or abusive reviews. As a result of these efforts, in 2019, we proactively blocked over 6 billion suspected bad listings and proactively blocked more than 100 million suspected fake reviews. Our efforts have ensured that 99.9% of pages viewed in our store have not had a valid report of counterfeit infringement. In addition, we have developed industry-leading brand protection tools such as Brand Registry, Transparency, and Project Zero. These tools empower rights owners to partner with us and help protect their brands so that collectively we can drive counterfeits to zero. And they're working. For brands that are using all of our brand protection tools, we've been able to together virtually eliminate counterfeits for these brands. But we know we're not perfect, and so we also continuously listen to more than 45 million pieces of weekly feedback that we receive from customers and others to search for any indication of an issue, helping us swiftly remove bad listings that made it past our proactive controls. Where we find an issue, we not only quickly take action to address the specific defect, but we also use this to constantly improve our proactive controls to prevent these issues from occurring in the first place, allowing our proactive controls to continually get better. This monitoring of large amounts of customer feedback can also allow us to find potential issues well before other industry participants or regulators have detected them or developed clear guidelines on how to handle a situation. As a result, we also regularly alert regulators to the issues we are seeing, and we work together to establish new guidelines, not just for Amazon, but for the entire industry. We also partner with government agencies and law enforcement to hold bad actors accountable. We report all counterfeiters that we block from our stores to the Department of Homeland Security and the National Intellectual Property Rights Coordination Center, aiding them in putting together stronger criminal cases against bad actors. We also pursue litigation, both on our own and in partnership with rights owners. Since 2015, we've brought lawsuits against over 1,000 defendants for attempted abuse in our stores. Amazon will continue to invest heavily and continue to innovate on behalf of our customers and our selling partners to ensure that only authentic and safe products are sold in our stores. However, we know that success will require all of us across the private and public sector to partner together in this fight to stop counterfeit and unsafe products. We welcome the opportunity to work with this committee and anyone else who is committed to eradicating counterfeits and unsafe products from the retail industry. I look forward to continuing this discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And now I recognize Ms. Wallach for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and the ranking member, and the full committee and ranking member chairs. I am Lori Wallach from Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Public Citizen is a national public interest organization founded in 1974 with 500,000 members and supporters nationwide. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the serious threat posed to the American consumers by a growing tsunami of unsafe products facilitated by e-commerce sales. When many people think about counterfeits or fakes, they think knockoff Gucci bags or fake Rolexes. and they're being sold on street corners. But increasingly, and to a great extent, because of the exponential growth of e-commerce, as a means by which Americans buy products, consumers are being widely exposed to serious consumer health and safety risks by fake products. Fake products being those which are now bought online of higher value and high consumer risks. Fake and unsafe products produced anywhere in the world gain millions of potential customers with sales and delivery made quick and easy, listed on well-branded e-commerce platforms, which provide an air of legitimacy. In the face of a business model designed to evade responsibility, with online retailers claiming not to be sellers, and thus not responsible for the accuracy of the listing or the safety of the good, in contrast to brick-and-mortar retailers, e-commerce consumers' last resort is on the government agencies that are responsible for health and safety. But no, because today, online retailers are able to use trade law loopholes to skirt normal customs procedures and inspections. Buried in the 2015 Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act was a change that has functioned like a deep-sea earthquake, spawning the tsunami of potentially fake and dangerous e-commerce imports that evade U.S. safety inspection. That change was to Section 321 of the Trade Act of 1930. It allowed customs to allow goods with a value below $800 to be imported by one person on one day, admitted duty-free, tax-free, without any of the normal data required, with respect to where a good was made, detailed descriptions of what it is, or any kind of a classification number or tariff number. The idea is efficiency. We all know of de minimis as when you can, for a long time, list $200 worth of goods when you're flying back in from a trip overseas. By moving it from 200 to 800, two very big consequences emerged. First, products of a much higher value can get de minimis treatment. And so the variety of products that could be sold expanded enormously. Now e-commerce retailers use it to bring in millions of individually packaged goods every day, as compared to the $200 level, which mainly was travelers. Many of these goods were too valuable to enter duty-free, tax-free, inspection-free when the rate was $200. So there are many goods that have a high risk to consumers. Electric scooters we've heard about, hoverboards, airbags, medical equipment, major electronics, etc. Second, the volume of de minimis shipments skyrocketed because the $800 limit made it commercially viable. It's not just individual travelers. So right now, according to the Customs Department, 1.8 million de minimis shipments arrive and are cleared without inspection every day. 1.8 million every day. 1 million from China by air alone. And because the de minimis shipments skirt the normal customs procedures, it effectively handcuffs the ability of the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the other agencies responsible for safety inspections who are co-located with customs imports, because they all rely on the data that isn't kept for those products to be able to do the risk assessments and targeting. So typically, the CPSC has somebody from their import surveillance operation in a port, and they have data in advance. Normal shipments come in advance under customs rules. If it's not de minimis, you have to know where it came from. It has various codes.
You need to begin to wind down. We're past time. Yeah, we are.
There's a risk assessment system that allows these goods to be caught. As a result, now we have goods coming in that are not being caught. And I recommend to the committee the CPSC's Office of Import Surveillance's report, e-commerce assessments, that lays out the deficiencies and what the agency needs to deal with them. Thank you very much.
I thank you, and now, Ms. Levitt, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Schakowsky, Ranking Member McMorris Rogers, members of the subcommittee, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. My name is Amber Levitt, and I am Associate General Counsel and Head of IP for eBay. eBay is a global commerce platform that connects buyers and sellers around the world and promotes commerce that is driven by people. Founded in 1995, eBay's core purpose has never changed: connecting people and empowering economic opportunity for all. eBay enables hundreds of thousands of American small businesses in every corner of the country and reaches 183 million buyers in more than 190 markets around the world. Over a third of American small businesses on our platform are from rural or small towns, and 36% operate a brick-and-mortar store. eBay is not a retailer. We do not buy or sell goods, nor do we compete with our sellers by manufacturing or selling products on our own. We succeed when entrepreneurs and small businesses that use our platform succeed. eBay's commitment to consumer safety and intellectual property rights protection is longstanding and a central value to our company. Our platform is built on trust. Trust that a buyer will receive whatever he or she has purchased, and that a seller will be paid for that good. The vast majority of listings on eBay come from honest, law-abiding sellers. Counterfeits and harmful items are simply not welcome on eBay. But bad actors will always try and game the system. We fully recognize more needs to be done, and we must work collectively to stop bad actors from using eBay or any other medium for criminal or illicit activity. As threats against consumers and rights owners continue to evolve, eBay continuously seeks to improve our efforts to fight against the bad actors and remove any product that shouldn't be on the site. We started this process a long time ago, but as e-commerce grows, we too need to enhance our efforts. We invest heavily each year to fight unlawful listings, including counterfeit goods, that appear on the platform. eBay takes an aggressive approach of prevention, detection, and enforcement to keep prohibited items off the site, remove them as quickly as possible, if and when they do appear, and take actions against those bad actors improperly using the platform. Central to eBay's anti-counterfeiting efforts is our partnership with over 40,000 registered rights owners through our Verified Rights Owner Program, otherwise known as Vero. Participation in the Vero program, which was launched in 1998, enables rights owners to report potentially unlawful listings to eBay, including copyright and trademark infringement claims. The Vero program allows eBay to promptly remove a listing, typically within 24 hours of being reported by an intellectual property rights owner. eBay has invested heavily in a complementary mix of human resources and technical tools and mechanisms to keep prohibited items off the site. With over 1.4 billion listings on our site globally at any given time, eBay continues to develop new technology focused on the proactive detection of potentially problematic listings on the site. eBay has a well-established global investigations team in place to provide support to law enforcement agencies in the investigation and prosecution of cases impacting eBay services, including the sale of counterfeit goods. Our teams not only support law enforcement by providing relevant records upon request, but also conducts our own investigations into misuse of our platform. We proactively refer counterfeit goods cases to law enforcement for potential investigation and prosecution, in particular where the counterfeit items pose a health or safety risk to eBay's users. In addition, eBay supports the IPR Center's e-commerce working group, which is exploring ways to share data on bad actors among participants. Finally, the investigations teams often work closely with rights owners who are the true subject matter experts on their products and can help eBay build a strong case for referral to law enforcement. We continue to work both proactively and reactively with law enforcement on cases involving the sale of counterfeit goods. eBay is deeply committed to our users' protection. As an e-commerce leader in developing policies and tools to combat infringing or unsafe goods, we are committed to working with you and other partners to combat counterfeit goods and protect American consumers. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Myers, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairwoman Schakowsky, Ranking Member McMorris-Rogers, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Jeff Myers, and I am Apple's Senior Director for Intellectual Property. I lead a team that works every day to protect Apple's revolutionary products and the customers who use them. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this important hearing about the sale of counterfeit goods, an issue that is first and foremost about customer safety. I would like to share my perspectives on the problem, what Apple is doing to address it, and what more can be done. Apple is a proud American company with a 40-year history of innovation. We take pride in making the best products, and the customer experience is at the heart of everything we do. While this commitment to our customers has been the foundation of Apple's success, it has also made Apple a target for criminals who deceive customers into purchasing counterfeit Apple products, which puts customers at risk of serious safety issues. Today, criminals increasingly use online third-party marketplaces to sell counterfeit Apple products. Fraudsters use Apple's name, logos, designs, and marketing images in their online offers to deceive customers into believing that fake Apple products are the real thing. Even after making a purchase, customers might be unaware that they purchased a fake product, and when that product does not meet Apple's high standards for safety and performance, it diminishes customers' trust in the quality of Apple's products and can have serious safety implications. Take counterfeit power adapters and replacement batteries, for example. Unlike genuine Apple products, these counterfeits are not subject to industry standard safety testing, and they tend to be poorly constructed, with inferior or missing components, flawed design, and inadequate electrical insulation. This poses a serious safety threat to customers. UL, one of the world's leaders in product safety testing and certification, examined 400 counterfeit iPhone power adapters and found that 99% of them failed basic safety tests, sometimes posing risk of fire or even lethal electrocution. Apple works tirelessly to combat counterfeits at all stages, from global production and distribution to sale in both online and brick-and-mortar stores. My enforcement group consists of over 30 dedicated professionals, operating out of 9 global offices and working with law enforcement authorities in more than 100 countries. Apple monitors over 75 online marketplaces around the world. When we discover counterfeit Apple products, we notify online marketplaces of the problem so they can remove the offers and hopefully take action against the sellers. While online marketplaces generally remove these listings when we report them, the impact can be fleeting as criminals simply relist counterfeit goods, creating a game of whack-a-mole. We also work collaboratively with industry and governments around the world to identify trends and to share intelligence about criminal networks. Apple is participating in the administration's work to combat the counterfeit trade, and we collaborate with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Homeland Security Investigations, among many other agencies. By working with federal authorities to better identify counterfeit Apple products at the border, we have supported over 1,000 seizures per year. Of course, Apple cannot address these challenges alone, and we believe there are actions marketplace should take to better protect customers. We agree with many of the best practices outlined in the recent reports from the Senate Finance Committee and the Department of Homeland Security, including the following. First, marketplaces should do a better job vetting sellers to ensure they are real, reputable companies that will stand behind the goods they sell. If a seller can't pass simple vetting requirements, they should not be allowed on the marketplace. Second, marketplaces should adopt better policies to address repeat offenders and kick them off marketplaces for good. Third, marketplaces should offer customers more information about the identity of sellers on offer pages, or they could provide notifications when they learn that a seller was supplying counterfeits. Fourth, marketplaces should work more closely with companies like Apple and law enforcement to bring criminal actions against counterfeiters. We have done this with some marketplaces, and we appreciate those efforts. Finally, there should be greater proof of authenticity requirements for certain categories of products where counterfeits comprise a significant portion of what is sold, particularly if safety concerns are present. Thank you for your attention to this issue. Part of the solution to this problem is increasing public awareness of the ubiquity of counterfeits online, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear today in that effort.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Love, I see that you've got some show and tell as well. You are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for this kind invite, and thank you, committee members, for all of your legislative work. When it comes to cycling, Chairman Schakowsky, thank you for sponsoring the Bicycle Commuter Act of 2019 and being a member of the bipartisan Congressional Bike Caucus. And I am grateful for so many members of this committee who are supportive of cycling with your actions. When I looked into all of you and what you've done, almost all of you were active in some respect in your local communities. My name is Andrew Love, and I'm the head of Brand Protection and Global Investigations for Specialized Bicycles. Specialized created the first production mountain bike, the Stump Jumper, in 1981. And our entire mission since has been innovation and improving the ride for both experienced cyclists and those just discovering the sport. Everybody counts. May I see a show of hands of the people in this room who ride, casual or seriously? Great. I've been fighting counterfeits for the past 12 years on e-commerce and social media platforms. Other panelists here are speaking very eloquently on a macro level. I'm a hands-on investigator, and so I will speak granularly and make my testimony here as immediate and tangible as the counterfeit bikes and helmets I have brought with me. When I started fighting fakes in 2008, I remember being able to go through the entirety of the threatened parts of the eBay cycling section in a day or two. I could look at it all and think with satisfaction, my job here is done. Fast forward 12 years. As of last night, the eBay cycling section has 2.57 million new items for sale and 154,000 used ones. Of the new items, 1.27 million of them were being sold direct from China, half of those being branded, half of them are unbranded generic items I will speak more about later. And eBay is one of 85 marketplaces and social media outlets we are active on. Mrs. Wallace, one of the other panelists, referred to the tsunami, and that is an exact description of what we face. I am grateful for the long-standing partnership I've had with eBay's investigators and Vero teams. As tough as the fight is, it would be so much worse without their engagement, not just for counterfeits, but also bike theft and fraud that threaten consumers. The counterfeit bicycle you see here is a model called the Specialized Tarmac SL6. One of our athletes, Julian Alaphilippe, led the Tour de France for 2 weeks last year on a bike that looked exactly like that. Success and being an innovative technology driver has made Specialized the #1 target in the cycling industry. When our professional athletes win, the counterfeiters see a business opportunity. When this counterfeit frame and wheels was surrendered to Specialized, it was a complete bike, so I took it for a ride. The rear wheel frame interface was so badly made, I pulled the rear wheel out of the dropouts twice in the first couple miles. In my 15-minute, very tentative ride, it showed itself to be a terrible bike with all sorts of basic construction problems and a front fork with the structural integrity of a wet sponge. We all ride at Specialized, and so do our families. Safety is so personal to us. These helmets you see here, I ride the real version of these fakes, and so does my wife. So does my daughter, and so does my mother. I am very passionate about the danger these counterfeits represent, and during the question and answer session, if someone asks me to, I'll happily destroy one of these fake helmets in a rough approximation of the CPSC test. I've read all the submitted testimony from my fellow panelists, and I fully support the big pictures they outline, as well as the points laid out in the January 24th Presidential Memorandum on Combating Counterfeiting. And I'd like to highlight a few specifics that would help Specialized protect cyclists. One, platforms need to provide more seller information so consumers know who they're buying from, and investigators like me can peel the onion layers and see what sellers are very bad actors. De minimis at $800 is way too high. We've all been speaking to that. It needs to come down. And generic items for sale on e-commerce marketplaces that don't bear trademarks must have someone take responsibility. The eBay cycling helmet section, as of last night, has 27,406 listings being sold directly from China into the United States. Now, I'm sure some of those helmets are fine. I am equally sure that many of them are not. And Consumer Reports did some investigations on this. I have privately emailed CPSC and spoken to every platform privately urging action. Also, financial attack vectors are crucial. If you can frustrate the counterfeiters moving money around, that hurts them. People talk about the frustration of anti-counterfeit work as being like whack-a-mole. I prefer to starve and poison the moles. It works very well. Follow the money is an old and effective tactic. In summary, our main advantage versus the bad guys is exactly what we are doing right now, collaboration. We have an internal saying here at Specialized, together we win. I deeply believe that. And thank you so much for your time and your very thoughtful engagement today.
Thank you very much. So we have now concluded the witness opening statements, and at this time, we will move to member questions. Each member will have 5 minutes to ask questions of the witnesses and 5 minutes total for your answers. I will start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Wallach. In your testimony, you explain how vast majority of e-commerce shipments to the United States skip normal, or at least we thought normal, customs procedures and all inspections because they enter the United States under a de minimis waiver. I said my goal is to increase CPSC's staff presence at ports of entry. Why do I need to care about de minimis waivers, and what actions do you think need to be taken to make sure that we protect consumers?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Number one, why to care about de minimis is that right now, the policy under which most e-commerce individual packages are entering basically makes it almost impossible for the Consumer Product Safety Commission or the other agencies of the government responsible for health and safety to actually screen dangerous goods. So Customs did a spot inspection in 2017 of de minimis goods that would otherwise not be inspected. They found a 43% fail rate. They found a variety of dangerous drugs, but they also found many counterfeit and dangerous products. In 2018, there was another round of this at 7 international mail, not ocean shipping facilities, international mail and express package deliveries, and they found, again, an enormous number of violations. 2/3 of it's from China. Hong Kong is second, with Turkey and a couple other countries. What it means is that all of the CPSC good targeting and risk assessment programs basically are skirted. So the answer, according to the CPSC, is on 3 levels. One, they need the data. Right now, because of the de minimis data runaround, they don't know what the good is to be able to figure out if they ought to be inspecting it. Number 2, they need to be basically funded and slightly reorganized to be at the places where the de minimis shipments come. The import surveillance unit found that 75% of de minimis packages come in 5 ports where express shipments come in. And CPSC has people at only one of them, part-time at JFK. So all the other places where CPSC has folks are the places that used to make a lot of sense. The big ports where lots of high-value shipments came and they got advance notice of containers. That's not where these shipments are coming. So they need more staff in different places, and currently only Customs has any information about the international mail shipments. So the numbers that CPSC has laid out of what they face, which, brace yourself, they think 57% of all the products under their jurisdiction that come into the country will be coming in under de minimis, which if not changed means uninspected, by 2023. Right now, that number is, and that would be 60 million packages. Right now, it's 36 million packages, 38% of the stuff that CPSC is supposed to be looking at. So the change is dramatic. It means a difference between goods being inspected and not.
Thank you. I think I'm going to move on. Mr. Love, do de minimis waivers affect your company? If products aren't inspected at ports of entry, what does that mean for people who are buying bicycle helmets, and what does it mean for your business?
Absolutely affects us. And what you were describing of that there's 5 ports where de minimis shipments come in, when I've looked into the fake ID buys I make of counterfeits, and I have hundreds and hundreds of these, I found it's actually only 3 ports where China Postal comes into the U.S. Postal Service. And all of these shipments are de minimis. They're very inexpensive. Even that counterfeit bicycle, the fake sold for $650. That's under the $800 de minimis level. So that package that bike came in would not have been inspected. And it's not a huge number, as you pointed out, of places that you would need to put a number of people to make an impact.
Thank you. I'm just about running out of time, but fake reviews have crowded out real comments. They trick consumers into buying unworthy products, and they put honest sellers at unfair disadvantage. Let's see, Mr. Friedman, I wondered if you wanted to comment on that.
Look, fake reviews under current law are illegal, but the platforms do not have an incentive right now to police them. In fact, in many ways, the better the reviews, the more products they sell, the more money they make. That's why we have to completely upend the incentives in the system. Even actions that are illegal right now are going on day after day after day in the system. And I appreciate that the platforms are trying to police them, but even as you heard earlier, Amazon talking about investing, say, $500 million in policing their system, that's a rounding error in their annual revenues. That's not what we need from these companies, and that's why we need both the companies and government to step up and require them to take more responsibility.
Okay. The 5 minutes goes fast, and I now recognize Ranking Member Mrs. Rogers for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During times of panic and anxiety, like we're currently experiencing with the spread of coronavirus here in the United States, and it's hitting my home state, Washington State, particularly hard, bad actors try to prey on consumers. Mr. Mehta, I imagine you're seeing a lot of traffic on your platform right now, both with people worried to leave home, scammers trying to sell fake products, promising to treat or cure coronavirus. What steps is Amazon taking to prevent the sale of fake products related to the coronavirus?
Thank you, Ranking Member, for the question. It absolutely is a trying time as someone who just flew in from Washington 2 nights ago, I can tell you. And there are a number of actions Amazon is taking to prevent the spread of fake products related to the current coronavirus situation, whether it is products making false claims, products attempting to gouge customers. There is no place for false claims or price gouging on Amazon. We've removed proactively more than 1 million products making false claims and tens of thousands of products that were attempting to price gouge customers. This is a rapidly evolving situation, and we're being vigilant and making sure we continue to monitor as things develop and that we protect customers to the best of our abilities.
Thank you. E-commerce platforms and third-party marketplaces online provide undeniable benefits to consumers and small businesses alike, but they also present opportunities for bad actors. This problem is complex, and it's clear that the heavy hand of government will not solve it. We must leverage technology and innovation here. Ms. Levitt, can you explain the technological tools eBay uses to identify counterfeit listings?
Thank you for your question. Yes, as I mentioned in my opening statement, we are focused heavily on prevention, detection, and enforcement. With respect to prevention, we have a number of different filtering methods in place to try to block listings that we suspect may be problematic from appearing on the site. We also have different algorithms in place that are monitoring for seller behavior and flagging different sellers for review. So we have the technological means, and then we also have human review that is taking place. Important to this is the partnership that we have with third parties, with brand owners, industry associations, government agencies, to provide the inputs that we need to continually go back and improve those methodologies we use. We also have different measures in place to prevent sellers who have been suspended from using our services from reappearing on the site again.
Thank you. Mr. Mehta, would you address Amazon's use of technology addressing counterfeiting?
Thank you, Ranking Member, for the question. Absolutely, technology is critical to preventing counterfeit at scale. As part of the investments we make, we invest in a large amount of not only technology and machine learning to constantly scan every listing update as it comes into our store, but we've also delivered innovative solutions such as transparency. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, being able to trace every individual product unit from manufacturing through the supply chain to the end customer is critical to how we solve this at scale. Transparency is a program we launched 2 years ago that allows brands and manufacturers to apply a unique code to every unit they manufacture. We have over 7,500 brands with 25,000 products that are using transparency that have allowed us to stop 400,000 products from 400,000 counterfeit products before they were ever shipped to a customer. And it is those types of technology solutions that we think really will work at scale.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, as I noted in my opening statement, China is the main source of counterfeit and fake products coming into the United States. How does the administration revising the trade agreement with China, combined with DHS enforcement efforts, provide us an opportunity to reset the fight to combat the counterfeit issue? How does it impact Apple's thought process when it comes to your own supply chain and countering counterfeits coming out of Chinese factories?
So I think relative to counterfeiting, at Apple, customer experience is everything, and safety comes first for our customers. And we view the counterfeit problem as a definite global problem, something that we see worldwide. We have team members all over the world. We monitor 75 platforms worldwide in 100 different countries. And so China is definitely one that we monitor closely. And I think, we certainly think that it's not necessarily surprising that might be the fact, given the number of consumer electronics that are manufactured in that region.
Is the trade agreement helping?
I would say that's something that I'd look into to tell you definitively if that's helping and what provisions therein are helping. I think that we're focused certainly on working in all capacities and interested in doing so with any government and customs agency, law enforcement, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes Mr. Pallone, the chairman of the full committee, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I wanted to start with Mr. Mehta. I wanted to get more clarity on Amazon's practice of commingling inventory from different sellers. Under this practice, from what I understand, consumers purchasing a product from a third-party seller or even from Amazon directly may unknowingly receive a product supplied by a different seller. And I think that can create serious problems when unsafe counterfeit products are mixed together with authentic goods. I wrote to Amazon on this issue before, but really did not receive an adequate response. So let me ask, yes or no, Mr. Mehta, does Amazon commingle inventory from different sellers?
Thank you, Chairman Pallone, for the question.
I'm only trying to make it quickly because I have to go to Mr. I have another series of questions for.
The question of commingling often is used to refer to our practice of virtually tracking different units that are identical and shipping the one closest to a customer. Yes, we do engage in that practice as part of our fulfillment.
All right. So is there any way for customers to be sure that they are getting the product supplied by the seller they see listing the product, or to know when they aren't?
Thank you for the question. So when we virtually track products and deliver, the program is designed to deliver the identical product that is closest to a customer. We do this because it allows us to deliver products to customers faster. We allow any one of our sellers to opt out if they don't.
Well, I think the answer is no, right? You may not be able to, if in other words, like example, I'll go on and I'll see a book that I want to buy, right? Now, it may be new, it may be old, various qualities. Presumably, if you're buying the older one, you're not going to switch that, I would assume, right?
We do not virtually track and ship the nearest product for used products, as every used product is different.
All right, but with new products, presumably, it would be the one from the seller, but it may not be. That's what you're saying, and that's the problem.
Well, what I would say is the root of the problem is if there was ever a counterfeit or unsafe product in our store, the root of the problem is how did that product get available for sale? How was it ever shipped into our fulfillment centers? And that is where we put our energy and how we proactively
But I do think it's a problem. I think the answer is no. There's no way for customers to be sure they are getting the product supplied to the seller they see listed or know when they aren't. The answer is no at this point. Correct?
Currently, we do not display anything to customers that would.
All right, and let me issue this. In your testimony, you say that you proactively provide refunds for any consumers who received a counterfeit product. If the inventory is commingled, how do you know which consumers received the counterfeit or unsafe product?
Thank you for the question. Again, we refer to this as virtual tracking. For every unit in our fulfillment centers, we know where the source of that unit was and where it was sent to. And
So a
if we
person
get-
would get a refund if they want it.
I'm sorry? I didn't.
In other words, if I say, look, I'm concerned that the product is counterfeit or it's unsafe, I can always get a refund, right?
Every purchase in our store is protected by our A to Z guarantee. And so regardless of whether Amazon sold the product or a seller sold the product, if a customer has a problem and the seller doesn't take care of them, Amazon will take care of them. In addition, if a customer doesn't come to us and we learn of a counterfeit, we know the source of that inventory and we know the customer that purchased
So
it.
you'll give them the
proactively
refund.
Customers.
I think you're saying I'll give them the refund, but the problem is how are they going to know? That's the problem, because you don't have there's no way for them to know for sure whether that product was supplied by a given seller. They may not know it's counterfeit.
A customer may be able to determine this, a rights owner may tell us, or we may detect it on our own. There's a variety of means.
Maybe. All right. Mr. Myers, you stated in your testimony, keeping up with all the unscrupulous sellers on online marketplaces is like a game of whack-a-mole. You shut one down only for another to pop up. You also say that online marketplaces should adopt better policies to address repeat offenders and make sure they're kicked off marketplaces for good. Just tell me, what are some policies online marketplaces could implement to accomplish this? How effective are you at, are they at accomplishing this and preventing unsafe counterfeit products from reaching consumers?
Sure, and I think one of the things and the issues are that counterfeiters, the incentives that they have are mainly profit. It's not about safety, and so it's a significant issue. And so we think if you look at the sellers, who are actually selling the actual products, and there's better vetting done of who they are, actually knowing that they're a reputable business and there's something behind the particular entity. In addition, the repeat offender problem, I mentioned that in my opening statement, but that's a significant issue. A lot of times, individuals who sell counterfeit products will have multiple listings, will have multiple sort of stores within marketplaces, and it's difficult for an outsider, not the marketplace necessarily, to understand what's going on and how prolific and how quickly that seller can actually repost something. But also for consumers, better identity of who the sellers actually are. Who am I buying something from, and understanding who that entity is. In some marketplaces, that's difficult to determine, as well as notifications when a counterfeit is identified, letting the consumer know that something they purchased was counterfeit. And then information sharing with marketplaces such that we can together build criminal cases together. That would be helpful to do as well. And then finally, there are certain high-risk categories of products where we have found in our test buy programs are highly counterfeited, and that they also present safety issues. In those areas, we'd love to have a different way to focus on those types of products where authenticity is really something that we should increase the rigor of our review prior to those being listed on a marketplace, for example. There's also other things that can be done. I think this hearing is great. Again, I think creating an opportunity for the public to learn more about the counterfeiting problem. I think more resources for law enforcement and customs. We work considerably with both agencies, and I think more resources there would be incredibly valuable. Design rights, design patents. Today in customs, you cannot use design rights to address a counterfeit problem. And it's a situation in which counterfeiters become more sophisticated, and they will remove trademarks from the counterfeited product, so you can't use your trademark or copyright potentially to address the issue. So having design rights is another tool.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Walden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks again to the witnesses. As I mentioned, we got hearings going on upstairs and downstairs. So I want to again thank all of you for being here, and I appreciate the work the President's done as well and his administration, because I think they've been laser focused on this. And it's clear the President's committed to fighting against this massive form of illicit trade that inflicts harm on American consumers and businesses. And Chair Schakowsky and now Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer the DHS report entitled Combating Trafficking in Counterfeit and Pirated Goods for the record. Mr. Chairman, without objection, would you accept that?
Without objection.
Mr. Mehta, I'm pleased to hear that Amazon is supportive of the administration's efforts on this complex issue, and in particular, many of the recommendations included in that DHS report. Can you explain some of the practices that Amazon implements that are suggested in the report?
Thank you, Ranking Member, for the question. We agree. There's a number of best practices in that report that we already implement today or plan to in the future, including the enhanced vetting of sellers, the efficient and fast notice and takedown processes, the higher qualification requirements for risky products and who can sell those. We'd also like to see, even above and beyond that, increased enhanced prosecution for counterfeiters that, as many folks have talked about, are about resources for the Department of Justice and other law enforcement agencies. But in addition, efforts like the current administration's Phase 1 agreement that is requiring China to increase prosecution for counterfeiters, we need to strike in more countries around the world, including in America.
Is that a good proposal, what the administration is doing with China?
I'm not intimately familiar with all the details, but
Right.
specifically as it relates to counterfeiting and increasing the penalties and stopping the manufacturing and distribution in China, we absolutely support that initiative.
Are there other big state actors or other countries where this is prevalent that we need to focus on? I mean, we focus on China a lot, but
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we find bad actors in every country, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, but also America. And so we've got to stop counterfeiters everywhere.
wherever they are. Okay. Then in your testimony, you referenced Project Zero, which is a new program. It gives power to brands and rights owners to remove counterfeits directly from the platforms themselves. Can you speak about the verification process for brands receiving access to remove these counterfeit listings?
Thank you for the question. So Project Zero is a new program, and it really is a way for us to partner with and empower rights owners so collectively we can drive counterfeit to zero. We have over 9,000 brands that are already participating in Project Zero. It includes automated protections, product sterilization capabilities, but also allows brands to directly remove a counterfeit from our store. They don't need to report it to us and have us investigate. We've now given them the power. That does mean a great deal of power that now sits with rights owners to control what's in our store. Our vetting includes vetting who the brand is, the accuracy of their submissions, and we continue to monitor that over time to ensure that type of tool is not used to harm honest small and medium businesses.
Yeah, you don't want an anti-competitive situation to crop up either. So, Mr. Love, bicycles and related accessories are items of high demand, and especially for many of my constituents in the great state of Oregon. Anybody who ever visits my colleague, Mr. Blumenauer, will walk away with a plastic bicycle pin. They rely on this for recreation and everyday transportation. So I understand helmets are a highly counterfeited good on e-commerce marketplaces. Are there any tips we can arm consumers with that might help them identify the counterfeit bicycle accessories before they're purchased? Turn on your mic there.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things you can do. Specifically for specialized products, we have a part of our website on specialized.com at the bottom. It's called Counterfeit Awareness at the very, very bottom of the opening page. And you can look, and if you have a helmet, you can ID it based on some things we talk about. The problem with putting items like this online, which we do, is the counterfeiters are pretty web savvy. So when they see that, they'll fix the problem. So the biggest thing I can tell, and I've seen that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I can tell customers to do is to be very savvy, and all of you have bike shops in your neighborhoods. You can think of them right down, I know many of the dealers in Oregon. You can think of the bike shops down your street.
Literally.
Visit those
Block away.
businesses. Patronize and buy from them. And if you are going to buy online in the marketplace, use common sense. Counterfeits fly in flocks. You won't just see fake Specialized helmet, you'll also see fake helmets from another number of companies. And for some reason, the counterfeit Specialized helmets and fake Oakleys always go together. I don't know why. And so just use your common sense, and if you see a $200 helmet for sale for $50, so.
I think I said that in my opening statement. Maybe, too good of a deal is too good of a deal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you for the work you're trying to do to protect consumers. We join you in this effort, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The chairman I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. All the burden seems to be on the patent or copyright holder to police the online marketplace for infringing and unsafe versions of products. For startups and small businesses who might just have a few employees, this can divert significant resources and make it almost impossible to do anything about it. It's unfair that bad actors can so easily swoop in and enjoy all the success without shouldering any risk or investing in any of the research or design or testing of their product. Take formers of the popular toy that young people can use. I have some knockoffs here, and I have some originals. And the bottom line is, when you look at them, you cannot tell the difference. As an adult, you can't tell the difference, and as a child wanting to play with them, they probably could care less if they're originals or not. And it's really important to understand that, for example, the knockoff that I have here, it's broken, and the issue here is that you have these little strong magnets. It's even hard to get a hold of one. These strong magnets, once it breaks, can get and be ingested by a child. This is very dangerous. It might not seem like much. You would probably think that the magnet will just pass through, but no, the child has to go through a dangerous surgery if they're found to have swallowed one of these magnets. In many districts across America, you have children who have swallowed these magnets. For example, to date, we have recorded at least 1,600 poison control centers, 1,600 cases in our poison control centers just for these kinds of magnets that have been ingested by children all across America. This is something that affects rural America, big city America. This affects our most vulnerable population, our innocent children. Mr. Mehta, in your testimony, you talk about a new brand protection program called Amazon Transparency. Transparency allows brands to use barcode technology to protect their brand from counterfeits and enable customers to authenticate products. How much does it cost for businesses to participate in this program?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. The transparency program has two primary costs for brands that choose to use it. And one is a per unit fee that they pay Amazon that ranges between 1 penny to 5 pennies per unit. It decreases for higher volume. And then secondly, brands will have some implementation costs, because the glory of the transparency program is that as part of the manufacturing process, rather than having the same UPC code or the same ISBN code on every product, brands will apply a unique transparency code on every product that uniquely identifies it. And when products are sold
So when you say per product, it's like this comes in a package of a few units. So what you're saying is the barcode that's on the outside box, that consists of 1 unit?
That box would have a unique code.
And that's considered 1 unit, the
that's
actual
1 unit.
box. Not
So-
if this has 100 units inside the box, it's the actual container.
The box.
Okay,
So it
go
goes
ahead.
on the packaging or the outside of the product, or a Swift tag if it's a apparel item. And that code uniquely identifies that package.
Okay.
And
Does this cost, is that cost exactly what it costs Amazon to administer this?
that cost is basically to cover our variable costs for maintaining that program and scanning every one of those products. We don't design this product as a program, as a place to make profit. It really is to help protect brands and us.
So Amazon is this is a break-even technology and opportunity for Amazon.
This is a program and technology that is about how we better protect customers and better protect brands.
But when it comes to the cost, because there's costs, I talked about small businesses earlier.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, so what you're telling us on the record is this is a break-even system within Amazon.
What I would tell you today is this program is not even break even. We lose money on that program, but we do it because...
Thank you. It could have saved us a whole minute if you would have just told me that from the beginning. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much for your commitment. Mr. Love, does specialized use of Amazon transparency, is that something that you're aware of?
We don't sell on Amazon, and we have no plans to. So we are committed to our local bike shop network for the distribution of our products.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wallach, how can we make sure all the burden isn't on the small businesses and that the online marketplaces and law enforcement are doing their part?
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas, for that question. And that's an excellent question. There need to be changes on two levels. One is some of the government changes with respect to the funding and the authorities for the Consumer Product Safety Commission that I referenced in my written testimony, as well for the FTC to step up and do its job. It has its authorities, and for Customs to make some of the changes so that the other agencies can have the data. However, as well, there's a strong responsibility on the companies. And with respect to some of the programs Mr. Mehta is mentioning, Those are some of the same responses made when the Wall Street Journal did its scary expose about all the products it found. And just over the weekend, I went through the prohibited products list and found 6 different prohibited categories of goods on the website, so that it's not clear that the technological fixes are addressing the safety issues. And moreover, Amazon clearly has very powerful technology to be able to deal with these problems, because since then, the times I've gone on Amazon, I'm getting advertisements for small crossbows, flares, and other prohibited items.
Thank you very much. Next, the chairman recognizes Mr. Burgess for 5 minutes.
And I thank the chair. Mr. Friedman, I noted in your testimony you referenced counterfeit airbags. This subcommittee did some of the original work and has continued to do work on the Takata airbag and the subsequent recalls. In fact, just this weekend, I learned that a manufacturer said that their airbag was unrecalled, and then I was informed by NHTSA that a recall can't be recalled, so I'm fighting that fight on another front. But counterfeit airbags are really something that was unknown to me until perhaps a year and a half ago. There was a story widely reported on our television stations back in Dallas-Fort Worth market and on the radio. I've become very familiar with the case. I will say up front, I never was able to obtain a privacy waiver from the family, so I don't feel I can talk about specifics, even though the case was mentioned in the news media, but it dealt with a crash in 2017 involving a counterfeit airbag in a 2013 Kia Soul. I did contact the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They wrote me back, and they have issued recommended dealer guidance for managing counterfeit airbags, along with the fact that an airbag could be counterfeit. As you might imagine, in this crash in 2017, the counterfeit airbag not only did not deploy, it had nothing within the guts of the airbag to deploy. It was filled with a shop rag and some other junk, but was not really an airbag. The car had been in a crash, the airbag had deployed, insurance had almost totaled it, but not quite, went to a repair shop, got this aftermarket item inserted, and then was sold on a car lot. And unsuspecting consumer bought the car, and his daughter subsequently was involved in a very, very serious accident and did not survive. Don't know whether it was survivable with a real airbag, but I know it wasn't survivable with a counterfeit airbag. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, Madam Chair, I am going to ask to make a copy of this letter available for the record. NHTSA did say they're going to be vigilant and they're going to coordinate across state, local, and federal government agencies. To date, the full scope of the problem remains difficult to assess. Industry plays a crucial role in this effort, and NHTSA is therefore pleased that the Automotive Anti-Counterfeiting Council has formed to work on identifying and eliminating counterfeit auto parts. So I've gone a long way to say that their website is a2c2.com. It's a rare problem, but it can be a fatal problem when encountered. And again, I would ask that a copy of this be made available for the record. Now, Mr. Mehta, just before my time expires, I was also intrigued in your testimony. You talked a little bit about what you were doing with the in the realm of copyright infringement or patent infringement. This committee also worked a lot on patent letters. In fact, there was a bill out of this subcommittee that I don't think ever got to completion, but it was the Targeting Rogue and Opaque Letters Act, the Troll Act, interestingly named, of several years ago. You talk about this voluntary effort that Amazon has. Parties put forward a deposit, and it's sort of like the winner gets their, if there's a dispute, the winner gets their money back, and it avoids having to go through the litigation process. I do wonder if people will give up the litigation process because it does seem to be very profitable to some people, probably our brethren in the legal profession. And I know the Eastern District of Texas has been one of the most active places for these types of lawsuits. But it is significant. It is a problem. I'm just intrigued by your approach because it's not a legislative approach. It's a voluntary approach. I just wonder what type of success you've had with it.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman, for the question. And the program you're referring to is a utility patent neutral evaluation program. The challenge with utility patents, as you note, in some cases, there are absolutely patent owners who want to go through the litigation, and they will go through the cost of that given the significant value a formal court proceeding will provide them if successful. The challenge is there are many utility patents that are not worth that effort for rights owners. And because utility patents are so complex, it's tough for marketplaces or stores or service providers to figure out which utility patents to enforce. So this program allows each entity to put up a deposit. If either entity doesn't put up a deposit, they lose. And that deposit pays for an outside evaluator, mediator, to look at the case and make a decision, and Amazon will uphold that case. That doesn't uphold in the court of law, but it makes a decision for Amazon. And we've noticed a number of other stores who watch Amazon's decision and use that to make the same utility patent decision on their sites.
So it has been useful.
It's been super useful, and the rights owners that have been part of that program so far love it, because it takes a process that can be years and millions of dollars and turns it into weeks and no cost if they're successful.
Very good. I thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chairman now recognizes Ms. Blunt Rochester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the panel. As Mr. Pallone stated in his opening, it is fitting that during National Consumer Protection Week, we discuss the significant safety concerns of online counterfeit products. After all, between 2015 and 2019, e-commerce doubled, and in FY 2019, the Customs and Border Control seized $1.5 billion in fake or pirated goods. It is obvious that the number of seized fake products is merely a fraction of the total number of fake goods. Many studies suggest counterfeits have proliferated on the online marketplace. They also suggest that virtually everyone in this room has purchased a potentially hazardous counterfeit product. That should give us all pause. And while there is certainly a discussion about stolen intellectual property, these counterfeits pose a significant public health and safety risk. Fake phone chargers can cause fires, batteries that burst can do harm, and even counterfeit water filters are being sold. This is especially timely as many members of this committee and constituents in Delaware understand having access to safe and clean drinking water is a major concern. Currently, it appears refrigerator filters are the main culprit, but filtration manufacturers like DuPont and EcoSoft are increasingly reporting other counterfeit filters like reverse osmosis systems. With increasing concerns for contaminants like lead, arsenic, and most recently PFOA and PFAS, this trend is worrisome. Mr. Friedman, how widespread is the counterfeit water filter problem online, and how can Congress facilitate improved transparency and accountability?
Thank you very much for the question. We see this as a really serious issue. Back in 2018, we looked at this very carefully because we were trying to help consumers get water filters that were less expensive. And what we found is we really had a hard time finding brands on Amazon that were certified to international quality and safety standards at all. I mean, that's just shocking. It's shocking that that was not a requirement. It's shocking that that also wasn't always clearly disclosed. Only one of the aftermarket brands had a proper verifiable certification for its filter, and these were the only ones we identified that even came close to matching the high standards that most refrigerator brand filters need. So it's a serious issue. One, we need to call on all of these platforms to step up. They're investing effectively pennies when they should be investing dollars in informing consumers, getting these products off their platforms, and putting their consumers instead of their profits first. In terms of Congress, I think it's a mix of things. One, again, they have to be held accountable for when they knew or should have known about these problems, and they have to be required to actively police these problems. Until then, the incentives are upside down, and their innovations are going to tend to go towards marketing more than they are going to go towards protecting their consumers.
Thank you. And Mr. Wallach, Ms. Wallach, I wanted to build on the points of Mr. Pallone and Mr. Kowski. I understand that counterfeiters avoid scrutiny by sending the filter and packaging in separate shipments. How does this avoid scrutiny by CBP, and do counterfeiters employ other tactics?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. Yes, by sending in separate packages, the package is considered under the de minimis customs level, and therefore skirts all of the normal customs procedures. Not only aren't the goods inspected, some 1.8 million packages each day cleared by de minimis, individual packages, that then go on to consumers, and that doesn't count the 475 million annually international postal packages. That's just the express consignment hubs and the air shipments. All of that goes uninspected because, in part, the data is not even required to be able to figure out. For instance, if you knew that filters were a crisis, that would go into the Office of Import Surveillance at CPSC to start targeting, to look for the actual either tariff code or SIC product code for that category of goods to start inspecting. Except that basic information is even provided, so there's no way to actually get on top of it.
Thank you. And Mr. Mehta, I will follow up with you because I only have about 10 seconds left, but I wanted to ask if you could talk about your seller verification process. So in 7 seconds, if you could.
Yeah. We have a very robust seller verification process. Includes a number of verifications about the identity of a person, their payment instruments, where they're located. And in addition, we invest tremendously in machine learning to be able to monitor behaviors or signals, the devices, the places these folks are signing in from, to detect related accounts and bad actors that we detected in the past, explicitly to prevent whack-a-mole type of situations.
I know my time has expired, and I'll follow up with you just to make sure that we talk about disproportionately targeting marginalized communities with algorithms. We have a lot of concerns about those issues as well. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman very cleverly yields back. The chairman now recognizes Mr. Guthrie.
Thank the chair for the recognition, and these questions are for Mr. Mehta and Ms. Levitt. Last year, Dr. Burgess just left, but I went to visit the JFK International Mail Facility at his request because when you're there, it's just amazing the volume of product that flows through, and there were counterfeit items they found, and some of them on your platforms. The second thing, I have 3 Amazon facilities in my district. I've been there. It's just, when you go through it, it's just the sheer volume, how big our economy is and how big a player Amazon is, and the volume moving forward. I know in your testimonies, I know both of eBay and Amazon have tools that try to figure out how to prevent counterfeit items from coming through. First with Mr. Mehta, since Amazon has a lot of employees in my district, Ms. Levitt, if you would kind of describe your processes and how the efforts that you have underway. And also I noticed that a lot of items were from China, and it seemed China was a big culprit in counterfeit. And do you agree with that, and what process do you have to make sure things come from China are authentic? So Mr. Mehta, if you go first.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Congressman. We want to prevent counterfeits regardless of the country they come from. We outlaw them. We have significant technology investments that scan every listing, every seller before they're able to sell in our store, before a listing is able to be published and available for sale. In addition, we have programs like Transparency that every unit that shows up at one of our fulfillment centers, we scan that product and know whether it's authentic or not, and can reject the product before it even ends up being stored in our fulfillment centers and potentially sold to someone. But there's more we can do here. As you note, and I'm glad you visited one of our fulfillment centers, as well as the customs facilities, there's more we can do to partner with customs in being more effective. There have been comments earlier about requiring pre-arrival information for every shipment, whether it's above or below the de minimis threshold. We're currently engaged in a pilot as part of the Section 321 with Customs and Border Patrol, not only to get some of that information, but for Amazon to provide the information we have, so that collectively we can aid customs in finding potentially risky products at the ports or at the facilities where those products come in. And in addition, when customs finds an issue, we'd love to have them share information with us, because we may have other shipments from that same bad actor. We may be able to shut their account down. We may be able to hold their funds and take greater action that can put together a better criminal case to go after those bad actors.
Ms. Levitt, and I'll say it this way because I know the custom situation, so maybe domestically. One of the big issues in my area is people who distill spirits, bourbon, Kentucky bourbon, particularly the high-end bourbons that people are buying not from a distillery, but from somebody who goes and buys a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, and they put it on the marketplace or one of the Heaven Hill brands. Or I should list all my distilleries, shouldn't I? But and so it's going from one person to another, but it tends to be not the real product, counterfeit. So I know you're not supposed to sell alcohol on your site, but I don't know if people do, and if they do, how you try to trace this down and make sure not just bourbon, but products from me to you domestically are also not counterfeit.
So in that instance where there's a good that's maybe stolen and then sold under a different brand, we have a team who's dedicated to working with law enforcement. They're a global asset protection team, and they're focused both on proactive investigations, so they have their own internal referrals from different sources throughout the business. They have different analytics and tools that they use to essentially find that behavior and do investigations. And if it looks to be a more serious level case, then they will work to refer those cases out to law enforcement. And then vice versa, if law enforcement is aware of that type of activity, they can make data requests through we have an external facing portal that law enforcement uses to request data on users that they're conducting criminal investigations for. And then they will also share additional information from investigations just to help us, both address the issue at hand, but then also implement proactive measures so that we can prevent those types of situations from arising in the future, both on the listing product-specific level, but then also the seller level as well.
So, Mr. Mehta, your fulfillment center is about 5 miles from Jim Beam. So how do you ensure your fellow corporate citizens of Bullitt County that their products aren't being counterfeited?
Yeah, so we invest heavily in that. As I mentioned in my testimony, last year in 2019, we invested over $500 million in preventing fraud and abuse, and that is primarily focused on proactive means. And so every listing, every seller that attempts to enter our store, we're scanning multiple data points. We have expert human investigators, but we also have advanced machine learning that's scanning every one of these. It's the reason that last year we stopped over 6 billion suspected bad listings before they were published to our store. And over 99.9% of pages viewed in our store have never received a report of counterfeit infringement. But it's not perfect. We got to keep working until we get that to 100% and zero counterfeit.
Well, thank you very much, and our time's expired. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Rush.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mehta, what is Amazon doing to ensure proper compliance with state alcohol laws and regulations, including how the purchaser receives the product, the price and terms of the sale, and the limits on retail sales imposed by the states?
We require all sellers in our store, whether that is Amazon, the seller, or the third-party sellers in our store, to adhere to all applicable laws, regulations, and Amazon policies. In addition, we invest tremendous resources in proactively screening every product before it is published to our store, in looking for signs of potential infringement or violation of policies, and we constantly monitor over 45 million pieces of feedback that we receive every week from customers, regulators, and others for anything we've potentially missed, to learn from that and figure out how we proactively prevent that in the future.
I'm also concerned that bad actors are using social media sites like Facebook to recruit people to leave false positive reviews of products that are offered in your store. And as a result, these bad actors are able to make shoddy products look more legitimate. And this is a practice that results in both defrauding and creating great risk for consumers and also manufacturers. What is Amazon doing to combat these practices?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. It is absolutely true that bad actors, one of the tactics they attempt to use to generate fake reviews is they go to social media sites. They create private groups with otherwise honest American customers and offer incentives or free product to try and get positive reviews. The challenges in these situations is often that communication and that activity is only known by the social media sites. Amazon doesn't have any data about what's going on. We just see these reviews coming up on our site from otherwise honest-looking customers. There's a great deal we do to look for signs or behaviors that look abusive to us. We report those to social media sites to get those groups broken up and taken down. It doesn't always move as fast as we'd like, but this is absolutely another area where we've all got to partner together, and social media sites have to do more to detect such abusive behavior on their sites and to partner with the rest of us to stop those types of fake reviews.
So, and Amazon made other manufacturers and customers aware of these shoddy practices? How are you all proactively alerting and informing the buying public and also manufacturers of these practices?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, so when customers may have thought they were just getting a free product or a heavy discount to provide a positive review, if we detect that, we will warn that customer. We will notify them that such practice is not okay. It violates our policies and in some cases violates laws. If there's continued fake review activity, we will ban customers from being able to leave reviews or Q&A responses or other types of community content. And similarly, for every one of the sellers and brands and manufacturers in our store who are selling products, they are made aware of these policies. And if they don't take the appropriate action, we will close their accounts. We've had over 1,000 defendants that we've gone after through civil litigation. We've provided information to the FTC and are partnering with them to similarly stop these types of practices.
Mr. Freeman, I'm very much appreciating your mention of the existing federal limits on lead and the use of small, high-powered magnets in toys. In 2008, I was the chairman of this subcommittee and drafted the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act in response to a plethora of reports of children being injured by lead high-powered magnets and other dangers that were present in toys. Needless to say, I'm severely disappointed that here some 12 years later, this practice is still going on. Given that these dangerous products are most often coming from third-party sellers, should online marketplaces collect and record information about third-party sellers, like the name, location, and contact information, to ensure that that people are purchasing what they intend to and not an imitation or a knockoff?
Absolutely, they should. And Mr. Rush, I also just want to thank you for your leadership on consumer protection in general and on these important areas. I would also like to say it's great to hear about what a lot of the companies are doing to help consumers, but the fact of the marketplace is it hasn't been enough. People are being exposed to these dangerous products. They're not investing enough, and they need to do a lot more.
Well, thank you. I ran out of time. Thank you so much. I yield back the rest of my time.
Gentleman yields back, and now Mr. Carter is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you for being here. This is certainly an important subject, one that we're obviously very interested in and want to help in every way we can. I want to start off by saying that the ranking member, Ms. McMorris Rodgers, in her opening statement, she talked about emerging technology. And Mr. Mehta, I know that you or I should say Amazon has invested a lot of money, a lot of employees in this. I'm just wondering, obviously you're using AI as well. Are you doing that? Is this in any way a part of your game plan?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. AI and machine learning is absolutely part of the game plan, as is the use of expert human investigators. So as we address these problems and prevent counterfeits from entering our store, the only way that we can collectively stop counterfeits at scale is through technology. Bad actors are using technology. They've hired their own engineers and their own scientists. These organized criminal organizations are attempting to find any crack between our systems. And so we absolutely use technology, whether it's in the vetting of our sellers and the way we were able to stop 2.5 million accounts that bad actors attempted to create last year, or the 6 billion bad listings that we stopped before they were published to our store. The only way we do this is through technology that is mining hundreds of different signals about the person, about their product, about information that brands and rights owners have given us about their brands and their logos and their distribution that helps us be more effective in stopping counterfeits and unsafe products.
Great, thank you. Ms. Levitt, what about you? Does your company utilize AI at all?
We've made significant technology investments as well and continue to look to do so in 2020. I'd like to note one thing about AI and machine learning. I think an important part of all of this is collaboration, because our AI or machine learning is only as good as the information that we're feeding into it. And so I think increasingly it's important that the platforms are coordinating with social media sites, with the brands, with consumer protection groups, to make sure that the data and the inputs that we are using to build and to strengthen and to modify those technologies is accurate and up to date. Because I think we all know we wouldn't be here today unless counterfeiters were pretty savvy, right?
Right.
And they know what to do, they know how to evade. And so I think that's an important piece, that when we talk about technology, yes, technology is extremely important, but the collaboration that goes into building that technology amongst all the stakeholders is key.
That's a good point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. To kind of dovetail onto that, Mr. Mehta, tell me about your Amazon brand registry. How many products do you have on that, and how's that working?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. So we launched the Amazon brand registry in 2017. It's a completely free service for any rights owner with a registered trademark. To date, we have over 350,000 brands worldwide that are enrolled in brand registry. They've enrolled for free. They don't have to have any kind of economic relationship with Amazon. They don't have to sell on Amazon. And those brands span from large global multinational brands to small entrepreneurs who've invented a product out of their garage. What brand registry does is, in partnership with rights owners, they provide us with a basic set of information about their intellectual property, their logos, their distribution, and we use that to aid our machine learning and our technology so that as we're vetting sellers, as we're scanning listings before they're published, we're able to more effectively detect potentially infringing products and stop them proactively without a rights owner or customer or anyone else having to find them. Since the launch of brand registry, on average, for brands reporting infringement to Amazon, brands in brand registry report 99% fewer infringements per brand than before the launch of brand registry.
Really? That's quite impressive. You mentioned earlier social media sites and what they were doing to recruit bad people and to leave false and fake positive reviews. What about that? How are you handling that? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, so we've absolutely seen situations where bad actors are using social media sites, often private groups within social media sites that are not visible easily to companies like ours or to government, and bad actors use those groups to recruit people and provide them discounted or free products to get incentivized reviews. It's completely unacceptable that that type of activity would occur. We sometimes detect it because we see irregular patterns of reviews being left on products. When we see that and we investigate, we report those to social media sites and expect them to take those sites down. It's something we're working with a number of social media sites to get that process to not only be faster and more effective, but more importantly for social media sites to proactively monitor for such types of abuse and inform other partners in this fight.
Well, great. Well, thank you for your efforts. Thank all of you for your efforts. And as you know, if it's on the internet, it's true. So we have to always keep that in mind. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and now Mr. McNerney is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair, and I thank the witnesses for this testimony. It's useful and informative. Mr. Maida, how does your company determine what products receive the Amazon Choice badge?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. We've designed the Amazon Choice Badge to really help customers simplify their discovery and shopping experience.
Right, but how does that badge come about?
So that badge is designed to show well-priced, highly rated products that are available for
How
delivery.
does that badge get awarded?
It is awarded through an algorithm that uses products that have been popular, that have high ratings, that have low return rates. It uses a number of factors that indicate that other customers purchasing that product have had a great experience.
Thank you. In order for a product to receive the Amazon Choice badge, is it required to undergo any safety testing by Amazon? Please answer with a yes or no.
Congressman, no, there is no unique safety testing to get that badge.
Okay, thank you. In order for a product to receive the Amazon Choice badge, is it required to undergo any screening to ensure that the product is authentic? Please
Congressman,
answer with a yes or no.
there is no unique screening for authenticity to receive that badge.
Well, do you think it's possible that some customers may interpret the Amazon Choice badge to signal that the product is one that Amazon trusts?
Congressman, we use that badge to show a product that other customers have found to be highly rated, to have great prices, and to be available for delivery. Amazon does not manually curate
So
or
the
assign
customer
that
may
badge.
think that that's some sort of a promotion by Amazon. Mr. Friedman, do you have a comment on that?
I don't know how a consumer could see it any other way. I mean, it's Amazon's choice. And this is a brand that has worked very hard to be a trusted brand, and yet you have Amazon Choice products, as we found, that are littered with fake reviews. They're not policing the system. They're not doing enough. We've heard a lot of 99% here in terms of impressive numbers of what they're talking about. Well, one, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Part of what
I'm a mathematician, so be careful.
Statistics can be great, but it can also be misused. Right. They're talking about basically with a lot of these 99% of verified reported things. They're saying consumers, sellers are the ones who have the burden to report these problems to them. And when they finally figure it out, potentially after being hurt or misled, then they do something about it. We can't wait for the problems to happen. They need to be on this in the first place.
Thank you. You've discussed review hijacking. Can you walk us through what that means and how it works?
Sure. Review hijacking is, it basically manipulates one of the systems on Amazon where in various ways you can associate a review with one product with other products. Sometimes it's great. For example, if you have a blue version of product A and a red version of product A, it makes sense to be able to associate those reviews together. But when you have a review of a bicycle helmet and a review of an eyelash lengthener, there's no reason why those should be able to be associated, but loopholes in the system allow people to either take dormant reviews or reviews from their own products and package them together.
So how widespread do you think this problem is, review hijacking?
We've certainly, in our investigations, we've seen it rather consistently, and what's even more troubling is while Amazon responds when we point it out to them, for a while, we monitored what was happening on their site and didn't report things, and we saw the practice continue. So clearly, they're waiting until victims speak up rather than proactively protecting their customers.
Well, I mean, I use Amazon all the time, so I want to have confidence in what I'm getting. Mr. Myers, can you talk a little bit about review hijacking, what it means to consumers?
I think that it's certainly, we monitor all marketplaces, including including Amazon, excuse me. And in terms of counterfeit-related products, what we do are test buys. So we don't necessarily look closely at the reviews per se, but what we do look is the test buys. And when we do that across all platforms, we still find a significant degree of counterfeit items on those sites.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Walsh, why is it important for customers to be able to easily discern who is selling the product?
For a customer to make thank you for the question, Congressman. For a customer to be able to make an informed decision about what product might be reliable or safe, they need to have the right information. And to your point about what kind of investment by the company is put into deciding to have a choice label. And this reflects other questions that have been asked by your colleagues. I note that while Amazon has reported in spending $500 million in enforcement, they, in the same period, have invested $15 billion in making it easier with 150 more tools to get more third-party sellers. So to reflect the comment Mr. Friedman made, the level of investment, as well as the decisions made, for instance, of what gets to be choice, but even what gets to be listed. As you've pointed out, these things aren't pre-tested, they aren't certified, it's not invitation only, it's the wild, wild west.
Thank you. All right, and I understand how hard it is to verify products, so, but Amazon and eBay and all the online platforms need to make the right investment because they are making money doing this. Thank you, I yield back.
And now I recognize Mr. Lujan for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank everyone for making time to be here today. I have 2 lines of questions, the first of which is something that you may not have been asked before, with the exception of eBay, who we were able to contact before the hearing, and I want to thank them for the work they did, and I'll get into that with the line of questioning. In New Mexico, Native American art and work is critically important. It amounts to 1 in 18 jobs that Native Americans participate in, twice the rate of other workers. It generates $1 billion in economic activity. However, by one estimate, Native artists lose about $500 million worth of income a year to fake goods sold from non-Native sources. My home state of New Mexico accounts for 18% of all Indian arts and craft board complaints. An estimated 1 in 3 fraudulent Native American products originates from an online sale, second only to retail sales. Ms. Leavitt, what steps has eBay taken to work proactively with tribal governments and dealers to help authenticate sellers and combat misrepresentation?
Yes, thank you for the question, Congressman. So just to clarify, your question isn't so much about the tribal items, it's more about seller verification. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yes, so we have a number of steps in place during the registration process to try to verify a seller's identity. In addition to that, we implement a number of limits or controls on what a seller can sell and what quantities they can sell, because they are not, quote unquote, trusted yet. They're new to the platform. And in addition to that, currently eBay does not intermediate most payments. So we don't have access to the same financial data that perhaps some other platforms or some of our intermediation partners, such as PayPal, may have. But as eBay moves more into that space, our objective is to leverage that data better, financials and other data sources that we will have as a result of that, and the federal obligations that we will have to improve our processes for vetting sellers.
Appreciate that. Mr. Mitha, does Amazon have any work in this space that you partner or you work with Indian Arts and Crafts Board?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. So we actually have an explicit policy that bans sellers from selling illegal Native American burial items or products that have been removed from Native American sites. We'd be happy to continue to engage with you and your office on this area.
Very good.
It is a very important topic.
And so it's not so much the artifacts that have been taken, it's the imposters, it's the fakes, it's there's actually a federal law that requires the stamping of country of origin on these pieces of art, but it doesn't exist. And so what we're hoping to do is to work with you to make sure that that is a reality on the policy. And again, to eBay specifically, we reached out to some local art dealers in northern New Mexico, and it was flagged for us several listings of counterfeit Native American goods currently being sold on eBay. When we shared those with you all, it's my understanding that they were taken down. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I really appreciate that. So we want to work closer in that area. Now, because I also am a cyclist, Mr. Love, I really appreciated you being here today, especially after a recent tumble on a mountain bike where I found myself going over my handlebars into a bed of rocks. Sadly, I don't have any video footage of it, so I'm sure everyone would appreciate that. It was not pretty. But nonetheless, that bicycle helmet saved me. Bicycle helmets, as you know, according to one meta-analysis of the available research, reduce head injury by 48%, serious head injuries by 60%, traumatic brain injuries by 53%. Can you tell me what happens if someone is wearing a counterfeit bike helmet, or what's happening with goods that are being counterfeited and what it could mean to the detriment of people's health?
And it's also appropriate that just down the hall from us, there's some traumatic brain injury symposium going on right now. And I can absolutely tell you what would happen, but I would much rather show you what would happen. I would love your assistance in the destruction of a counterfeit. Would you like to come down and destroy a helmet?
Madam Chair, with your permission.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is the CPSC test replicates an impact, which is about 6 feet in the air, about a 200-pound guy, head first onto either a rock or a curb. Now, I'm almost 6 feet tall, I'm 200 pounds, and I've done that. It's a terrifying impact. Now, in the CPSC test, any impact over 300 Gs fails the test, because over 300 Gs, that's the brain injury death line. A real specialized helmet will keep you down to 100 Gs-ish, and you're gonna walk away. It doesn't feel good after a hit like that. But I'd like you to jump on this or just hit this hard, and let's see what happens to this counterfeit helmet. Jump on it? Yeah, if you can. Ready? Yeah, do it. Oh, that's not good. Now, I said you the 300 G.
Point out the gentleman is already out of time, but finish your sentence.
Okay. The 300 G line is the death line. This registers 994 Gs on our testing equipment, and our testing equipment only goes to 994 Gs. It's worse. So this is why we're so passionate, and we really appreciate working with you all on this question.
So Mr. Lujan would have been in serious trouble had that been a fake.
I wouldn't be Madam Chair, and I know my time's up. I wouldn't be standing here today if I would have been wearing a helmet like this with that tumble that I told you about. I went into 2 boulders. I went head first in and rolled it. I popped my shoulder out. I probably would have been dead on the side of that trail until someone found me, or with some traumatic brain injury.
We're very happy that you aren't. I mean, dead, that is. Thank you.
Mrs. Levitt has had a similar crash. She's also a serious mountain biker, so helmets make an impact.
Thank you. Ms. Dingle, you are next for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this hearing, and thank you to all of the witnesses. I'm from Michigan, as you all know, and I'm a car girl. So I want to start with a few questions on automotive safety. As you know, counterfeit airbags and their components pose a severe danger to consumers, just like we saw with the helmet. I understand that while other major e-commerce platforms have moved to ban the listing of airbags and their components because these products are particularly even more prone than the helmet to counterfeiting, eBay continues to allow the listing of airbags and components. A recent search for airbag and component listings on eBay generates hundreds of results for airbags and various airbag components. So, Ms. Levitt, I want to ask you a few questions on this. Why has eBay refused to adopt the industry norm to ban the listing of airbag and safety restraint components?
Thank you for your question, Congresswoman. So eBay has worked with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration as well as the automotive manufacturers on several of our policies around airbags. So as you're well,
They're not happy.
There is a big recall.
Yes, very. It hurt people.
Yes.
It killed people.
Correct. And that's very unfortunate. And we worked very closely with NHTSA on the communications, not only with past purchasers of the airbag that had been recalled, but also worked with them to remediate through sanctioning and essentially.
Okay, but you
kicking
still
users off the
haven't, I
site.
know that I only have a
Correct.
short amount of time. How do you verify the authenticity of airbag and airbag components? And what are you doing now to keep people from buying bad parts that could kill them?
Thank you. Yes. So we do ban airbag covers because those can be used to circumvent, right? You could put something in the airbag cover that could be an airbag, essentially. So those are banned on the site. In terms of the other airbags and parts that are allowed, those they are only allowed by a group of vetted sellers. And those sellers have to provide proof or demonstrate that they've sourced those items directly from the manufacturer.
So can you tell me how the auto industry is working? You're working with them to make the public aware of the safety risk posed by these counterfeit bags? And if you could go quickly, because I want to do.
Oh, yes. So we work closely with A2C2, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Yes. We are actually meeting with them in our offices in San Jose, I believe, next week. And so, again, the purpose of those meetings is to sit down, reassess, are our measures doing
This
enough?
matters. We really are talking about lives.
Absolutely.
So I hope
and I
you'll
suspect this
pay
will be a
attention.
big topic of conversation.
Thank
during
you.
that.
Now, with the remainder of my time, I want to focus on the coronavirus. Anytime there's a danger or fear, will almost certainly be someone offering a product designed to protect against that fear. But this in turn becomes very dangerous when the product doesn't work, and in fact helps perpetuate the problem. So, Mr. Mehta and Ms. Levitt, this represents a real public health risk. How are Amazon and eBay addressing this issue? I'll start with Mr. Mehta.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. The coronavirus situation is rapidly evolving, but from the moment it started, we started to actively scan our site, proactively looking for any seller who's trying to list a product making false claims, claiming that our product could cure the virus, claiming that the product would save them in some fashion. In addition, we looked for bad actors who were trying to take advantage of a crisis situation to try and price gouge customers. We have no tolerance for false advertising claims or price gouging in our store. We've removed 1 million products that had false claims in them. We removed tens of thousands of products that were listing products at gouging type of levels from a pricing perspective, and we're continuing to monitor our site. This is a very fast evolving situation.
So let me ask you 2 questions before we go to Ms. Levitt. How quickly can you take it down? And then, for instance, I tried to order bleach, and I got a notice this week my order had been canceled. I don't know why, it didn't give me a reason, but when you think someone's gouging or it's not there and a customer's trying to order, do you try to replace their order? Do customers think they're getting something? So for instance, if they ordered it a week ago and you said it was coming, how do you deal with customer expectations?
Yeah, Congresswoman, in terms of the question on how quickly we can respond, we monitor every listing as they go up, and then we continue to monitor them. And so sometimes this is happening before the listing ever gets up, and sometimes within minutes of it being in our store. If a customer ever did purchase a product and was not happy with that product, whether it was sold by Amazon or sold by a third party, every product's covered by our A to Z guarantee. I'm not sure what happened with your bleach order.
Oh, I don't care about that. What I'm more worried about is how do people know whether it really works? And I think you got a lot of people ordering products that they think are coming, and then I was not the only one that had their order canceled in the last week. So I think people are counting on you on some of these things as well. Ms. Levitt, I'm already over my time, so you are safe, but I'm going to send a letter. Thank you.
Woman yields back, and I recognize Congresswoman Kelly for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for holding this hearing today. As more consumers migrate from buying products in stores to buying them online, new challenges have emerged, as we've talked about. One area that has been particularly frustrating for me is the sale of firearms online. While many platforms have said they do not allow the sale of firearms or bump stocks, simple code words and private groups are used to get around algorithms designed to detect illegal activity. While one of the most egregious offenders is not testifying today, I believe that companies need to do more than lower illegal activity to an acceptable level, as one company representative put it. Ms. Levitt, eBay is a third-party platform that connects sellers with buyers. I know that in 1999, eBay decided to prohibit sales of firearms and ammunition. What does eBay do besides just using machine learning algorithms to crack down on firearm sales, and how do you ensure that bad actors are not able to continue posting using code words?
Thank you for your question, Congresswoman. So I think we approach the problem twofold, right? There's one problem with the listing and the items itself, and then the second problem is with these bad actors who are listing the items. So with respect to the listings themselves, We do have a prohibition on those items on our site. We have a number of blocking and detection technologies in place. Those are coupled with manual reviews. We actually have pretty substantial physical teams who are scrubbing and reviewing the site, looking for those types of listings. As part of that process, we're constantly going back and revising and refining those blocks because, as you mentioned, these individuals are using different terminology to try to circumvent our measures. With respect to bad actors, we have again in place a algorithm in the background that is trying to search for fraudulent and problematic behavior, and then those accounts are suspended from using our services. And then again, we have a number of measures in place that are attempting to prevent those sellers from re-registering with our site.
Do you have any idea how often it happens?
Probably more often than any of us would like. I don't have the exact numbers, but we can get back to you with that.
Thank you. Mr. Mehta, I know Amazon has a similar policy. What actions has Amazon taken to crack down on direct gun sales on your platform?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. We do have a policy, and like a number of our prohibited policies, we are constantly scanning every listing as it goes up into our store to look for a potentially prohibited product and stop that before it ever is available for sale. In addition, we know that bad actors try to game our systems, and so we work both with regulators and different organizations that help us identify new products that are coming on the market that may be legal to sell in other places but are prohibited on Amazon, to understand what those products are and understand the different ways that folks may advertise or communicate those products. In addition, when we find bad actors that are violating our policies, we block their accounts. We stop them from being able to sell more products. We hold the funds in their account to make this a crime that does not pay. And there are multiple cases where we're working with law enforcement currently to go after bad actors that have violated our prohibited products policies.
Okay. Increasingly, we're seeing social media companies play a social role in directing consumers directly to companies. Last summer, British regulators found troubling evidence, quote unquote, of a thriving marketplace for fake online reviews on eBay and Facebook. On eBay, they found more than 100 listings offering fake reviews in exchange for payment. On Facebook, they found over 24 groups recruiting writers for fake or incentivized reviews. Consumers depend on online reviews before making new purchases. One survey found that 97% of consumers depend on reviews for purchasing decisions. Ms. Levitt, can you tell me how eBay has responded to concerns raised by British regulators?
Yes, thank you for
And
your
as quickly
question.
as possible.
Yeah, so we worked with the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK. We immediately took down the listings that they had identified, and then we performed our own separate searches to take down additional listings that were problematic. We took appropriate action by suspending those sellers, in addition to other sellers that we found. We went back and revisited our policies to make sure that they were clear that those types of services were prohibited from being offered on our site. And again, we have that formula of looking at listings and sellers to try to prevent problems.
And Mr. Freeman, do you think companies like eBay and Facebook have responded adequately?
No, they definitely haven't. I mean, you even heard here in response to a tragedy associated with a counterfeit airbag, it was referred to as unfortunate. It's not unfortunate. It's tragic. It's unacceptable. And so much more needs to be done. That bike helmet, that's the 1%. That's the 0.1% that shows up. People's lives are at risk. We need to stop quoting numbers. We need to stop using platitudes. We need to invest in innovation at these companies and in Congress to block the counterfeits, the dangerous products, and the fake reviews.
My time's up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The gentlewoman yields back, and now I recognize Mr. Soto for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. What a fascinating area to be able to work on. When I look at even in my own household, the evolution of how we purchase goods and services is just going almost as fast as I could keep track of. In our own household, my wife orders groceries online and they arrive at our doorstep because she works very hard as a school teacher, math science coach to be exact, and doesn't feel like going to the grocery store anymore, and I don't blame her. Boxes show up on our doorstep. We even have a doorbell that can video people to know who it is and have an idea whether people are going to be trying to be porch pirates and steal our boxes or not. And yet we also go to the mall when my wife has an important purchase she wants to make and wants to try on things or even get quick purchases. So we have to obviously look at continuing regulations in this area because it's become such a major part. 79% of Americans have made online purchases, a staggering number. 26% have purchased counterfeit products. In 2016, 16 items seized at the border that pose a direct and obvious threat to human safety. So we want to make sure that people have and consumers have various options, and we can keep up with technology in a busy lifestyle. We also want to make sure that people are getting the goods that they purchase. Mr. Love and Mr. Friedman, some counterfeit products pose a greater threat than others because they are used for things tied to human health and safety. Should these products face greater scrutiny, and if so, what should that scrutiny be?
I would absolutely encourage greater scrutiny, and not just for the branded counterfeits, but also for the generics. The helmet that Mr. Luan jumped on, actually, it was a copy of one of our products, but it didn't have our logo on it. I mean, any cyclist would look at that and know that's a specialized helmet, and that's why they sell. But our logos were removed, and I had him jumping on that to make the point, because I legally can't take those down. And so something that should be addressed, and this is a matter for CPSC and engagement with all the parties at these tables, is how to deal with the generic products that are dangerous. Not just the current one here. This has our specialized logos on it. When this appears on e-commerce, I can knock this down. But if I just peel off the sticker, I can sell hundreds of them all day long, and no one has any legal recourse.
Thank you, Mr. Love. And Mr. Friedman?
Absolutely, these products, anytime a product is involved with health and safety, it requires double, triple, quadruple the effort because people trust those products. They depend on those products to save their lives and to protect them. Part of the challenge here is every single one of these products should include, in many cases, specific certifications. I expect every platform to be screening those products for those certifications. I expect more resources and more efforts at the border to block those products from being able to come in. And I expect the platforms not just to certify companies up front, but to regularly audit and follow back with them. And when they find illegal practices, always report them to the authorities.
Thank you.
Don't just ban them.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Mr. Mehta and Ms. Levitt, it'd be great to understand what you all think should be the rules of the road with regard to fraudulent sellers and how we could use things like artificial intelligence and blockchain to be able to keep integrity in the system of online sales.
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. We absolutely agree that artificial intelligence and machine learning is critical to how we stop these bad actors. While there's a number of criminals and bad actors that operate in kind of old school fashion, increasingly we see bad actors that are using sophisticated technology themselves to try and game our systems to try and attack American customers. And so we have to use machine learning to detect patterns, to detect behaviors, not just from when someone registers, but on an ongoing basis when they're selling in our stores. We think things like blockchain or solutions like our transparency program that uniquely identify every product that's manufactured are technology solutions that can scale throughout the entire supply chain much more effectively and proactively.
Ms. Levitt?
I would just add to that again, as I testified earlier, I think another important component to that is the cooperation, because our systems and technology can only detect so much, and I feel like a lot of what we've seen in our experience is sometimes brands or consumer groups see activities or behaviors that sellers are engaging in that we don't have visibility to, and that may be off-platform or on other platforms, and once that information is shared, that helps us to perform a more comprehensive investigation and improve our own detection methodologies.
Thanks, you yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I am so happy to yield to Congresswoman Eshoo, who is always so kind to me when I wave on to her health subcommittee, and I am very happy to yield to you right now for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for your kind remarks and for your leadership here and at the Health Subcommittee. That never stops with Congresswoman Schakowsky. So I guess it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the big hearing room of the Energy and Commerce Committee. And a special welcome to Ms. Levitt from eBay. I'm proud to have eBay in my congressional district and have watched just that very, very tiny idea just grow and grow and grow, and there are a lot of people that have benefited from it. So thank you for coming across the country to testify today. I don't think everyone understands the difference between eBay, Amazon, and other e-commerce platforms. I think to understand a business, you have to understand how it makes money. So, Ms. Levitt, would you just take a minute and tell us how eBay makes money? What's your business model? And tell us what business practices eBay avoids relative to your peers, so that people that are tuned in and listening to this understand the differences.
Yes, thank you for your question. I think the biggest difference is that eBay is a pure marketplace. So we provide a platform for independent sellers and buyers to connect to transact a sale, essentially. I think another big difference that exists between us and our competitors is that we don't compete against our sellers on the site. So eBay does not sell, we don't otherwise touch or distribute or retail the products that are sold on our site. And so our success as a business really does depend on the success of our
How do you know they're safe?
sellers. I'm sorry, what was that?
How do you know they're safe products?
So we have the products. So we have
Or the item, whatever you want to call it. But
Yep. So we have a number of different measures in place in addition to partnerships. So we've talked a lot today about the different technologies that we have, both to look at the listing and the seller level to ensure that there are no violations going on there. But then we also rely heavily on partnerships with third parties, including government agencies such as the CPSC, to keep us informed about not only recalls, but also issues that can pose a serious safety risk to consumers. So we kind of couple those two things together, in addition to efforts with law enforcement.
thank you. To Mr. Maida, good afternoon to you. Knowing who's selling a product, and this has been taken up by different members since I came in and was absorbing what the questions and the answers were, but knowing who's selling a product is really important for buyers, obviously. Now, on a product page in the Amazon app, a user has to scroll past the Buy Now button to see who's selling the product. Now, I think that this seems like information I certainly would want to know, and I think others would like to know before, not after or ever, but before they're buying, especially if the seller is an Amazon. Now, I had in my wonderful opening statements, and I'm going to submit for the record, I used the example of helmets. And we saw today what how calamitous a faulty product can be. So it's one thing to buy a knockoff designer handbag that's sold online, but it's an entirely different issue when, as we saw, when helmets don't meet required standards, fake iPhone chargers cause fires, counterfeit toys can injure children. So why is the seller information listed after the Buy Now button? And is Amazon willing to change that? It seems to me you've got a real headache on your hands.
Yeah, Congressman, thank you for the question. We also consider...
Do you really mean that? Thank you.
No, I do really mean that, because
Okay.
I completely agree that it is completely unacceptable for an unsafe product to be sold in our stores. And it's the reason we invest so much in proactive efforts to stop that.
But you
On
know,
every product,
Miss Wallace kind of took that apart. You are making an investment, but the investment made on that side relative to safe products and people knowing who's selling it versus the other dollars you're spending, that just didn't, I mean, it's like this. So I think you need to address that.
So if I go to your question around the product detail page, and every time a customer views a product detail page, we try to make it very transparent. It's the reason it's right next to that Buy Now button that we
But
say
why don't you
ships
reverse
from.
it? Why do you make it afterward? Why not just state it up front? Wouldn't that be better for you as a business model and confidence in terms of consumers? It seems to me that it's an easy thing to do unless you don't want to for whatever reasons.
We've tried to put it right next to that, and we want it to be easy for customers.
Why don't you say before you buy, you should know the following?
To be honest, I've not heard this feedback from customers. I'd be happy to follow up and look at whether customers believe this would be helpful. We've had it in that location, and in general, customers are very clear. We say it ships from and sold by, and so that it's very clear which of those are, and you can click on that name and get more information about that seller.
Yeah, well, my time has expired, but I have to tell you, if it was my business model, I'd go with consumers because they're your customers. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. I yield back.
The gentlewoman. Normally, this would complete our questions, but I had asked the ranking member, if Ms. Rogers, if I could ask a few more, and if you want to ask any questions, Mr. Shimkus is taking her place. But if you don't mind, I'm going to go through just a couple more questions. In October, the Federal Trade Commission reached a settlement with the skincare brand Sunday Riley for directing employees to post false reviews and to downvote negative reviews. But the Federal Trade Commission settled with the company, as I had mentioned in my open statement, but it did not conclude any money, compensation for consumers, or penalties on the company. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Friedman, first, what kind of message is that the FTC is sending to a business who might be thinking about falsifying reviews and ratings?
It sends a terrible message, Madam Chairwoman, very much in contrast to all the work that you've done throughout your career to protect consumers. What this says instead is business as usual is fine. This is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of how the incentives are not there for the companies to do the right thing, even when they're clearly violating the law. Obviously, that FTC settlement completely missed an opportunity for them to lead for consumers to put.
I think most normal people wouldn't consider that a settlement at all. No money and no punishment.
Yes.
It's remarkable.
It's not even a slap on the wrist.
Mr. Myers and Mr. Love, do you think that this settlement establishes a sufficient deterrent in any way to a seller thinking about engaging in fake reviews?
Yeah, I think any time that a customer is deceived is not a good situation. It's concerning. I think relative to how we look at the issue of just counterfeit products overall, one counterfeit is too many. And wherever that's happening, it's something that should be addressed, ideally jointly, has been discussed today with marketplaces as well as with government agencies.
Exactly what he said. And I do want to quickly follow up on something that Congressman Mashu brought up that was in the last discussion about putting customer information on stores. Speaking as an investigator, when you go to an Amazon.uk store or an eBay.uk store, that information's all there because it's required by law. I love when I find a bad actor on Amazon that they also have a UK store because then I can research them. I'm completely incapable of doing that on .com today. So that's an aspect where legislation in terms of disclosing who you're actually doing business with, which it must be mandated by law in the UK, could be something that could be looked into.
I assure you, Ms. Eshu and our subcommittee will be interested in following up on that as well. Mr. Friedman, so what do you think is an appropriate punishment for businesses that seek out fake reviews?
From my
I'm not really asking for a dollar figure, but I'm assuming you think there ought to be some compensation to the consumers and also some sort of punishment.
Yes, I mean, A, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. They should certainly be charged not only a penalty associated with the harm that they caused, but an additional penalty, maybe even relative to the size of the company, so that they actually feel it, that it means something to truly deter the actions. Many of these companies out here, we're talking hundreds of billions of market capitalization in some cases. A few million, a few hundred million here and there isn't going to make a difference to the decisions they make every single day.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify something as well. I want to make sure that the ordinary consumers understand what we mean. I was thinking back on the question about de minimis. So I order something, I order a bike online, and it's $600 and something, you said. So it could be sent with a lot of other bikes that have been ordered, but it's sent to me as a way to get under the threshold. Is that right? I mean, things, for example, that are boxed, that could be in a container, are then sent individually to get away from inspections. Is that how that works, that you can avoid inspections?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chairwoman. Yes, the combination of the de minimis being higher and the lack of information, and combined with the platform's contention that they're not the seller, creates basically a perfect chain of uninspected goods getting delivered in huge amounts to individual consumers. As a practical matter, and this is detailed in my written testimony, there's several different ways you can game the system. If you pick and pack things in a fulfillment center overseas into particular boxes addressed to a U.S. ultimate consumer, and the value of what goes into the box is less than $800, you're into de minimis. A new scam that there was a recent ProPublica story about is to have big containers, because those individual shipments are typically done by air freight, which is expensive, but to make it cheaper to go by ocean shipping now, companies have designed a system where they basically have big containers full of many counterfeit bikes shipped to Mexico or Canada. They're landed there as goods in transit, so they're not entered into Mexican or Canadian customs. They're picked and packed out of the ocean container into the individual. Then they are trucked over the border to a U.S. post office or to an express consignment, a FedEx or whatever, and sent to the U.S. consumer, at which point they don't get inspected because they're de minimis. It's a serious problem.
Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to just make sure everybody understood what is going on.
One thing to add, which is perhaps the most alarming, and with respect to the administration's
you know what? I'm going to have to skip that because I'm out of time.
Okay, Customs considers these mass shipments to actually be individual shipments is the added thing. So Customs can change the rules.
Okay, thank you for that.
Madam Chairman.
Yes. I am completed my questions, and I yield to Mr. Shimkus.
Thank you. I won't be long. This is not my subcommittee. Members of Congress have to be expert generalists, and you're getting lesson 101 on being an expert generalist. So I'm just going to finish and make sure that, a statement from our side would be that, from what I understand, we have rights holders, online marketplace, and consumer advocates at the panel. And I think we would argue that if you want a better, quicker, faster solution to this problem, probably best to be working together before we let the political, legislative process try to solve this. And I think from what I've been told with the opening statements and the testimonies, people understand the challenges and the problems, and I would just encourage you to do that. With that, I yield back my time. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for helping us to finish this hearing. Thank you so very much, and for your remarks. Okay. I now ask unanimous consent to insert into the record letters, what? Oh, I see. Here we go. And they are a letter from Preclear a statement from the International Precious Metal Institute, a letter from the Toy Association, a letter from the Internet Association, a letter from the National Association of Attorneys General, a letter from the, is it former acting NHTSA administrator Heidi King, offered by Representative Burgess, a letter from the National Association of Manufacturers. Unanimous consent?
Without objection.
Without objection, so ordered. And with that, let's see, oh yes, I need to remind our witnesses. And first of all, thank you for being here, but I wanted to remind members that pursuant to committee rules, they have 10 business days to submit additional questions for the record to be answered by the witnesses who have appeared. I ask each of the witnesses to respond promptly to any question that you may receive. And now, at this time, the subcommittee is adjourned. Thank you so much, all of you.